Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you're at, ladies and gents. I am Kuura Isagami, your resident tinker and meta-rodder, and thanks for tuning in with me once again here for yet another Orimeda stream here on the workshop floor at the MNN. Much like it has been in previous streams, it is always a pleasure to put some of these arts together, and the last several guest Orimeda specifically have been nothing short of a success, with lots of very unique designs, unique takes, and 100% original, never before seen. I honestly love every single one that's been done so far, especially with how crazy that this month has been. Not just not just for my 4th anniversary, but also with coordinating between all of my guests and making everything happen. But well, on the topic of guests, as you guys may suspect, this stream in particular hosts yet another very dear friend of mine here on the MNN, a returning host that has actually been here a number of times in the past. I'm happy to introduce once again Helm-chan, my dear friend. It is a pleasure and a treat to have you here on the MNN with me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. It's lovely to be back here. I am simply sorry that the last time we were going to do this, things didn't quite turn out.
No, it's 100% fine. Pretty much like we were joking about before stream time and everything. It's sometimes it's nice to unplug every now and then, whether voluntary or not. In some cases,
Yeah,
really.
I would certainly have much rather it been voluntary, but at least we're back now. That's the important thing.
100%, and everything's doing pretty good on your end. No bugs, jumps, or ticks anytime in the recent days.
You know, there haven't been any bugs, and now I'm worried there's going to be because things have suspiciously gotten okay around here, so we're kind of due something going wrong soon.
Gotcha. Well, I get you too. And honestly, let's just blame it on the weather, because much like we were talking about as well, it's been getting obscenely hot all globally all over the place. So let's just blame it on the heat and call it a day.
Yeah, it's absolutely miserable here at the moment, frankly.
Exactly. But yes, like I said, Helm-chan, it is a treat to have you here on the MNN with us once again. It has been a hot minute since the last time, but for our guests that are tuning in or may find this stream later, how about you take a couple minutes and just kind of talk about yourself? What do you do? Favorite content? What do you do on your channel? Anything else worth noting about the legendary maid themselves?
Certainly. Well, for those of you who do not know me, I'm Helm-chan, the perfectly normal robot maid. I stream on Twitch, allegedly, because the internet has meant that I couldn't do it for the past, oh god, like 3 weeks. We're really out of practice right now. We usually do things like, I like old school RPGs. We're currently in the middle of going through Final Fantasy IX. We also do a lot of platformers, and of course, everyone's favourite terrible card game, Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm allowed to say it's terrible because nobody hates Yu-Gi-Oh! More than people that play Yu-Gi-Oh!
That do be how it is though with the fans. I mean, look at Pokemon for instance. Most of Pokemon's most toxic fans are players that play Pokemon. So it'll
to be fair for Pokemon players, I kind of get it. They need a win. Pokemon players need a win badly. It's been rough for them lately.
No, you've got a point. You've got a point. But still, the most toxic and loudest of people that say this sucks or this needs change, it's always the people that are deepest within the community. So that's
exactly
that's always 100% to be expected and understood. I personally have never gotten into the Yu-Gi-Oh craze, but I have had several friends that have, and just based on what I do see of the of their stuff and their conversation and memes, it is quite the war zone experience to play a Yu-Gi-Oh game. Is that correct, or kind of an accurate representation?
Very much so. Very much so. I will tell you what I tell everyone who says that they haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh, which is, if you would like to get into Yu-Gi-Oh, I will happily, at a moment's notice, do my best to help you get into it. However, I would never actually recommend it.
That sounds very similarly to what another friend told me when I first became a VTuber. That congratulations, now stay 8 miles away from the community. I'm like, wait, huh, huh? And then I'm like, oh, that explains a lot.
Like, Yu-Gi-Oh has some wonderful things for it, some wonderful designs, some wonderful people that make content in the space. But much like any kind of game that is competitive in nature, it is an absolute difficulty wall to try to get into it, and it's really hard to kind of induct someone into it gently, because obviously if you're playing online, everyone's trying to win, so you're not going to find people playing softball on you,
Right.
and
So,
it's just very demoralizing for a new player all the time.
so essentially, it's just got a very steep learning curve where you sink all the way to the bottom and never touch it again from the horrendous traumatic experience, or you just hope and pray that you did really well and then just live on that adrenaline.
Yeah, honestly, you're probably either gonna you'll either play the game, get demolished, and get demoralized by that, and say this game sucks, I'm never playing this again, or you're gonna get demolished and go, okay, how can I not have that happen again? And that's when they get you.
Exactly. I mean, hey, that is the indomitable human spirit, though. Let's be real. Oh, I got absolutely abolished in this. I had to do something wrong. Let's do this one more time, and then just charge right back in and do it again.
See, that explains why I'm really bad at trying to play difficult games, because I don't have the human spirit being a robot. I lose twice, I'm probably giving up.
Exactly. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'd be looking at something and I'm like, you know what, that boss, how high is my level to it? Oh, about 15 levels. I mean, feasibly I could, but do I want to? I don't know. Let's try it. And I naturally, being 15 levels under leveled, I get my butt handed to me and I'm like, I saw it bleed. I don't care if it was like a quarter. It was like I don't care if it was like a 15th of a health bar. I saw it bleed. I could do it. So I go recoup. Yeah, I go recoup and go do it again. So gotta love how that is sometimes. But Helm-chan, like I said, it is a treat to have you here on the MNN. Now back to the main event of this evening is the Orimeda stream and the fun creation that we're going to be coming up with tonight. Just to recap the rules briefly on how I run these Orimeda guest Orimedas. Essentially, my guest, I will give an assignment about a couple weeks before showtime. I'll send him a link to the generator and says, all right, so I'd like you to generate maybe 3 to 4 top results that you like the best after playing with this and kind of learning what they do. Then you will bring those 3 or 4 results to showtime, and we will decide on one of them together to refine into a final concept with a realized design. And the last rule was to not tell me or show me about these designs, because if I see these or we discuss them prior to showtime, then there's already a bias and we already know, oh, we're going to design this one this way, or we're going to skip this one and try another one another way. I don't want to do that. So I always emphasize wanting to do these blind so that we can all see them at the exact same time and take time to explain what all of them do and talk about them, and then formally decide of the prompts that were brought to us this evening, which one is the best candidate for what to be further refined. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and start up my stream BGM. Just get that back up and running, so it's not.
So hi Zordon, hope you're doing well. Zordon's one of our regular guests at the manor.
It is a pleasure to have you with us today, Zordon, and thank you so much for tuning in. How are you doing today as well while I'm putting this together? Let me fire this up and keep it at a fair volume, just so it's not too loud or too soft. Alrighty then, now for the main event of the evening.
I can't wait to see how little synergy these things have.
Oh, see, that's
I did my best to try to find ones that made some degree of sense reading the skills.
That's the charm of Metaroth, though, is you can have something that synergetically as a pure set has the weirdest, most random parts of all time, like they have 0 synergy with each other whatsoever. Yet the second you do something like, say, changing out a head part for something that's a little more synergetic to the kit, it changes it from an absolute 0 to a menace.
So I get this, because you're talking in terms, I'm just thinking in Yu-Gi-Oh terms, like, yes, I see, get it.
Exactly. So we're gonna be having a fun time because we're already on the same wavelength here with how to approach this. This is gonna be fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I have everything put together. Alrighty, so for the prompts here. Alright, so Helm-chan brought 4 prompts specifically. Looking at these as well, what were the themes for these by chance? Or you just want to kind of
I kind of left them blank because I didn't really want to pick one. Sorry, let me start that sentence over again. Okay. Words. I didn't want to pick one that over the others, and I didn't see a random option for the theming, so I thought I'd just leave that blank.
Okay, that's 100%
Dealer's choice,
fair.
if you like.
That's 100% fair. And actually, what I may do is add that as an option, post addendum to the generator afterwards, because I never thought of it, but definitely is a possibility. Okay, so looking at the options that you're bringing with us tonight, so we're going to be skipping the theming, and we're just going to kind of go with this one, kind of impromptu, essentially.
I will say, as far as theming goes, Kurt, I don't know if you remember. I know it was a while ago since you did your What is Medabot stream, but I don't know if you remember me saying this, but I do have a certain type.
Yes, you absolutely do. And if it doesn't...
That is the closest I will come to requesting theming.
Well, depending on the theme in question, I see no reason why we can't try to implement that in somewhere, somehow. Alright, so option 1 we're looking at is a kit of Scrape, Hyper Thunder Shot, Disaster.
Oh, that's what the H stood for. Okay, I was thinking something very different, but carry on.
Yeah, it's, they kind of ran out of characters, so they just use H for Hyper if the characterization is too long.
I'll be honest, that makes far more sense than what I was thinking.
Sea Legs with Emergency. Alright, and then, what was the heavy limit on this one as well, by the way? Or do you want to kind of leave that one blank as well?
Oh, I do not remember.
Okay, that's fine. We'll assign one.
Yeah.
So let's say this one... Let's say this one has a heavy limit of... Let's say 2. Let's say a heavy limit of 2 on this one. Okay.
As I am a wee Medarot bab, what is the heavy limit exactly? What does that affect mechanically?
Okay, so heavy parts was a mechanic that was introduced in Medarot 8, I believe. And essentially what they were parts that had higher than average skills, but at the cost of the higher specs, they also had weight to them. Naturally, you know, a minigun with a magazine of 2,000 is a lot heavier than a minigun with a magazine of 500. So that's essentially the whole mechanic behind it. And how that behaves with legs is if the legs are able to support the heavy parts, you're able to pack the higher artillery and weight no problem. But if you overload the legs, you eat an all-stat debuff additively for every heavy part that exceeds the limit.
Okay, so it's like encumbrance in Dungeons and Dragons.
Correct. Basically, you now had a new element to factor in when building your team, that with the limit of heavy with the weight. And if you couldn't find legs to balance the weight, you had to redesign to fit what you were looking for.
Gotcha. Have I ever made a Medarot that has like more heavy parts than their default legs can take?
Actually, yes. There is one.
Oh, wow.
There is one model in the entirety of the game's history, and I don't know why they did in this way, but it is the funniest thing ever for this reason. It is Beast Duster, which was the first boss from Medarot 9. Basically, I like to call him the Craigslist or the eBay Beastmaster, because he's basically a junk pile that's made with random pieces.
Oh, this guy! I remember this guy from anime.
Yep, Beast Duster. But he's a garbage version, basically. Let me see if I can send you a picture real quick of him, and you'll see. And it's
yeah, I had the figure of this guy, the little like 2-inch figures with the swappable limbs. I had that as a kid.
So what you're probably looking at is Beast Master, which is the one that everybody knows and loves as the weapon of mass destruction. However, in Medarot 9, there was an alternative version of him introduced called Beast Duster, which is essentially a junk pile garbage version that is using mismatched parts to kind of throw together.
I see. I guess in that regard, it makes sense that he wouldn't necessarily have the capacity for his own limbs then if he's just like mishmash.
So here's the funny thing with it though. Hold on one second, I think. Okay, cool. Here's the funny thing about Beast Duster though, and then we can proceed with your options. Beast Duster was designed as triple heavy, so naturally he's packing a lot of higher than average specs and some higher than average power. The problem is, and that's all fine, that's all well and dandy, the problem is his legs have a heavy limit of 0. So he is the one model in the entirety of the game, and my review and my breakdowns of him will also confirm my personal feelings on Beast Duster. If you use him as a pure set, you may as well not bother fighting, because he's not going anywhere fast at all, in any capacity. Now, if you change his legs out for something that can take the weight, then he becomes a menace. But by himself, he is triple over encumbered, meaning he is terrible. Absolutely terrible.
So you said this guy was like one of the bosses, right?
He was the first boss of Medarot 9.
And is he like... So the first boss, like the first one you encounter?
Correct. He is the first...
Okay.
He's the first story boss of Medarot 9. And brief tangent on that one. Medarot 9 actually had a really unique story mechanic in the early chapters, where kind of like Pikachu was with Ash in the very beginning of the Pokemon adventure. When Tenma is first given his starter, which is either Juke or Manjiro based on version, and they are given prompted of a name. Tenma decides to name them either Zipper for Juke or Soen for Manjiro, which sound kind of neat, as like kid themed or kid imagined nicknames for a bot, until they realize the names sound stupid. So as a result, they think Tenma is stupid for giving him the nicknames. So they decide, for the entirety of the first early chapter, up to the first boss, they are not going to listen to you. At all. And that means if they cost you a fight, well, guess what? You're losing, because they decided to spite you and choose to tank the blow instead of dodging it. Or if you tell them to use their head part, well, guess what? Now they're using a left arm just to spite you because you told them not to.
That is pretty wonderful, the idea that they just hate their own nickname so much that they'd rather lose the fight.
Now, in their defense, if you go and look at Juke and Manjiro, you can kind of see where Tenma would get the nicknames. And Manjiro's as Soen is kind of funny, because someone actually went and did the research on what exactly Soen translates to and what it alludes to. And it alludes to a very bright, iridescent mineral called bismuth. Very bright, fancy,
bismuth, yeah.
and very fractal kind of mineral. Very bright, very shiny, very iridescent. Which works because Manjiro's clear coat is iridescent. He's not a solid green. The problem, however, is bismuth is also known, and rather infamous, for being extremely brittle. So Manjiro took it as an extreme offense of being nicknamed brittle. So you know what? In Manjiro's case, I'll let it slide. He has every reason to be mad. I will give him that. Because
all this comes around to me wondering with this with the Beast Duster guy. I wonder if it's kind of deliberately they made him over encumbered so that he'd look big and scary, but he's actually not that big of a deal because of the debuffs.
That's actually kind of the entire point of the fight, because he's flanked. Yeah. He's flanked by two trappers that kind of do most of the damage for him, and and you have more trouble with the traps than you do actually him himself. It's the funniest thing
I like that.
But yeah, moving forward with the prompts to kind of keep things going.
Sorry, don't derail there.
No worries. So, option 1, with Scrape, Hyper Thundershot, Disaster, and Sea Legs with Emergency, and a heavy limit of 2. So, kind of tell me your overall thoughts with this one. Like, what kind of made this one stand out to you?
So, I think what kind of pulled it together with me, excuse me, was specifically the Thundershot with the Sea Legs. Was making me think of Mega Man 9 Splash Woman.
Okay.
I think that's kind of what made it stand out to me.
Okay, I can definitely.
I'll be honest, I didn't really have much in mind for the other parts, but I mean,
Okay, I mean that's still a really solid option though, because it's a very good option for ailment fighters that want to be more aggressive. Because typically ailment fighters tend to not put a higher emphasis on damage, and instead focus on heat, cool, or even success, which is their likelihood of even landing them at all. Because if you have, say, a freeze arm, but a very low success, you're not going to be doing a lot because you're not going to be landing a bunch of hits. So that's kind of where the hyper comes from. But to explain the rest of the skills briefly as well, Scrape is a unique support skill that, when activated, basically converts the next skill into Effect Clear, which, explained, checks the enemy target for the number of buffs applied, applies punish damage for every buff it finds, and then removes all of them.
Oh, that's cool.
So basically, once you have Scrape activated, if you have an enemy buffer that's really trying to make things a pain by adding a lot of buffs at once, well, guess what? They're not allowed to use them anymore. The only problem is with Scrape...
I guess it's a little bit like the Pokemon move Foul Play.
Correct. The only differences with Scrape is it only applies for the next attack specifically, so it does mean you have to apply it repeatedly based on the number of head uses in order to use it more than once. But more often than not, that's really not a big deal. Hyper Thundershot is basically, again, much like I was alluding to, a much stronger, more aggressive version of Thundershot, which is a shooting attack which will stun the enemy in their place. But the Hyper in it also grants it a piercing bonus, so if it ends up breaking something when attacking and stunning the target, it will also inflict carryover damage to another part, making it far more aggressive, at the cost that the user cannot dodge or defend in their cooldown status. So basically you deal much more power, but you also will eat much more punish if you get caught on the backside. And then lastly, Disaster specifically is a very unique skill that when attacking a target, if it hits the part that the target is going to use on their turn, for instance, if you target the right arm and they're using the right arm, it is going to instantly destroy the part in question. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. However, if it does not target this part in question, it behaves as a regular attack instead. In this case, it will automatically destroy it and Pierce is disabled. So it behaves as a regular piercing melee attack if it doesn't correctly target what the enemy was going to use. Now, sea legs...
So it's really good if you've got the read on what they're going to be using next, but otherwise not so great.
Exactly. It also has a tie-in with metal nature, which also tells a lot with, I like targeting these parts that are fast, or bulky, or slow, or powerful. So it kind of ties a little more into the power of choice and kind of influencing that choice to a degree. Sea legs also means it's going to have relatively decent coverage on all terrains, but also have an emphasis on high evade, making it a lot easier to dodge or graze attacks. Their damage reduction may not be too bad every now and then, but they are also, of course, subject to anyone that is using anti-sea coverage, so little caution is advised there. And the leg ability of Emergency is basically a stat boost every time someone on the allied team gets something broken. So essentially, this is the bot going, okay, something just broke, I don't know who it is or why it is, but it's starting to cause me anxiety, so let's start picking up the pace.
Got it, so it's like a comeback mechanic.
Basically. And for every part broken, that stacks up to 5 times. So honestly...
Does that count for your own parts or only your friends' parts?
Only yours. Only the users.
Oh, only their own parts?
Correct. Actually,
sorry, wait.
See specific.
I mean the stacks, like when it triggers, is that off of you?
They only apply to the user. Let me see.
But you gain the stacks when you lose parts, or anyone on your team loses parts?
When allies.
Okay, so not you.
Correct. So basically, if your shielder goes down because the shielder's arm got broken, well, anyone with emergency is getting a leg stat boost, and that can stack up to 5 times. Alright, so
I see.
Oops, hold on, let me pull that
It's
back.
that weird wording thing where certain games will refer to allies, and in some games you are your own ally, and in some games you're not.
Correct. Alright, now, option 2. We're off to a very good start so far. We have some pretty good we have a good option on the table. Alright, option 2. Let me move this around. Alright, option 2 has a kit of Mega Gatling. Rifle A2. Wave, and tank legs with adversity. And since it's tank, we're going to give it a heavy limit of 3. Alright, so, what were your thoughts on this one ultimately?
So this one I was just figuring like, well, tank legs to me seem like an ideal fit for just mounting a ton of weapons onto it. So, Gatling head, rifle arm, I'll be honest, I don't quite know what the wave actually is, but it just, to me, made sense, you know? Slap a bunch of guns on a tank body, call it good. Work for the gun tank, it'll work here.
Exactly. And honestly, it's really not a bad loadout either. Mega Gatling, for instance, is a scatter type of attack, which means it will damage one part normally and then 2 others randomly, but it also gets a times 1.5 damage bonus as long as the user's legs remain intact. So, as long as you stay relatively healthy and you keep your mobility, you get a damage bonus. Rifle A2, on the other hand, is rather unique, though. I'm actually looking that up here just to make sure I remember which one that one is. Alright, so Rifle A2 is a basic shooting attack that deals piercing damage. It also ignores defense and then buffs damage by an extra 50% if it breaks something and creates piercing. So basically, this is a shooting attack that basically rewards you for breaking something with the attack, with an extra 50% second wind damage, essentially, when attacking. Now, Wave, on the other hand, is a melee skill. It's the only melee skill on this build so far. But what it does is it attacks the opponent and debuffs their heating and cooling by 25%, which means they will be going notably slower than they were before. And it also applies a no-defend status on them, which means that every hit that lands is a guaranteed crit, period. And if the enemy is trying to use a shield, well, you're not allowed to shield anymore because you can't even protect yourself, let alone your allies.
Man, that sounds pretty good.
Now, the leg ability of adversity is also neat too, because essentially for every... Oops, hold on, I went too far. Here it is. Essentially, adversity is for every negative ailment applied to the user is an all leg stat buff, stacking 5 times. Or in this case, 4 times, actually, since you can only hold 4. So basically, if they like to slap a lot of ailments, such as Deathblock, which is 2 negative ailments, Melt, Wave, Thunder, Virus, Bug, or so on, anything that's considered a negative ailment, you get an all leg stats plus to kind of keep you going. Think of it essentially like Guts from Pokemon.
I was just about to say, is it a bit like Guts? Yeah.
Basic.
Okay.
It's basically like Guts. Is for every negative ailment applied to you, you go a little faster, you're a little dodgier, if you aren't tank legs, and you also get better damage reduction. However, it is also...
This kind of sounds like it...
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it kind of sounds like, to my, untrained mind, it almost sounds like this goes very well with Mega Gatling, because if they start attacking your legs, that would remove the bonus from the Mega Gatling. If they're putting debuffs on it, you're now punishing them for doing so.
Basically. Now, something else to note is that leg abilities are only active as long as the legs are operational. So if your legs are broken, then you lose adversity. But honestly, still, it is also worth noting for tank legs that they do have a free passive stack and stacking damage reduction of 30%. So at the cost of not being able to dodge at all, and you have a 0 terrain bonus, just no bonus, no detriment on every terrain across the board, you get a free 30% damage reduction that stacks on top of any incoming reduction you have, and takes 30% right off the top of any incoming damage.
See, that is very much my style. When it comes to defenses in games, I would much rather take the option that says you take 30% less damage all the time than the option that says 10% of the time you take no damage.
Right, exactly.
I'm a big fan of consistency.
It's more consistent, yes, at the cost that, like I said, you cannot dodge at all. So every hit is guaranteed to land on you no matter what. But in most cases, adversity kind of works with that, because if you're going to inflict it with an ailment, you're gonna get it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're going to get inflicted with it, and that's a free stack for you. Alright, so option 3 that you're bringing to us tonight has a kit of Mirror Guard. Guard, please, thank you.
Oh, Zordon's got a question in chat. These are from the game, Zordon.
Whip with float.
Are these skills are from specifically are they from the mobile game or are they from the single player? Okay.
They're all the skills that are present here are from Medarod S, and most of the basic ones like rifle, hammer, and so on, all carried over from the earlier games. And a lot of these newer ones like Hyper Thundershot, Beam Sword T, Rifle A2 were all stuff that was introduced in S.
Right.
Alright.
It's funny because I actually briefly played one of the Game Boy Advance ones back on the Wii U. I think it was one of maybe 5 games I owned for that console. And I had no idea what I was doing. I'm sure the manual explains it, but if you just try and play that game on its own, it is really confusing trying to make heads or tails of it.
Yes, it does. And I actually, when I had my collab with Ruben and talked about it, we touched that very same thing. In the defense of a lot of people that played the game, it did a very terrible job of explaining what exactly all the stats did. And I kind of wish they did a lot better at doing that too, because it probably would have been received a whole lot better too if they actually explained what all the stats do and how each of them behave with each other. But, alright, so option 3 has a kit of Mirror Guard, Beam Sword T, Whip with Float Legs and Blow Beat, and then we're going to give it a heavy limit of 1. So, what were your thoughts overall on this one specifically?
I didn't really have, any strong thoughts. I just thought it sounded like a neat combo. I don't know, I was thinking maybe something like vaguely angelic, which I'm always a big fan of.
Okay.
I didn't really have anything too strongly, just I thought, float could have wings maybe, angel with a sword and a whip, that sounds pretty cool. That's just kind of what I was thinking then.
Okay, I can see it. So, just to go over this kit briefly, to explain, the Mirror Guard is a defense skill that when active on the field, meaning that your butt is planted on the command line, you are going to intercept all incoming attacks targeted towards your allies or yourself. However, the trade-off is that you also will reflect at 50% intended damage any and all shooting attacks back to center.
But you say reflect, you don't take the damage though.
You take no damage. You take the hit, you turn it back around, and reflect it at 50% the intended damage to that particular target. So if they
I
were going to be
see.
dealing something that was going to be extremely painful, well, there's a good chance of that about half of that's still going to break something.
Hmm.
Now, Beam Sword T is rather unique in the sense that it's not exactly anything new or groundbreaking compared to the original Beam Sword, but to explain it briefly, it's an optic attribute melee skill that gets a damage bonus relative to charge. That is a double damage at 30% and a triple damage at 100% charge. So if you're able to tie this again with someone who has a CG sustain, such as with a full charge head or a leg ability that can boost charge over time, the more charge you have, the more powerful Beam Sword gets. Now, Whip also is a fairly new attack as well that when attacking the target actually applies two different effects. The first of which is it applies a hold effect on the enemy, which is much like Wave, it will debuff the enemy's heating and cooling by 25%, but instead inflict a no dodge status, which means all hits are guaranteed to land, period. Furthermore, Whip also has a hand in crowd control because it will pull the target closer to the command line by essentially forcing them to come back and either stall their cooldown over again, or, if you mistime it, accidentally accelerate their heating all the way to the center line.
Oh, interesting.
So a little bit of timing with this one is required, but it can be extremely painful if done right. Great for stall tactics. Now, Float Legs also means it's going to have good coverage on all terrains with no real benefit or detriment. Basically better than Tank, but at the cost they're not nearly as bulky. But the leg ability of Blowbeat is nice because what it does is grant a percentage of the enemy's resistance stats are ignored when attacking the enemy. So you're going to be dealing just a little bit more damage than intended when attacking specifically, just because you have this ability.
So resistance is just like the defense stat in this game.
Yes, legs have two different resist stats. You have melee resist and shoot resist, and they both behave.
Okay.
And Blowbeat basically ignores a percentage of those when attacking. I think it's like up to 20% is ignored off the top. And then if you have an attack that basically outright says ignores defense, well, those stats aren't even applied to the equation when attacking them.
Right. Makes sense.
Now, the last option that you're bringing with us tonight... We have some pretty mixed candidates here with some good possibilities. So option 4 is Sword. Just basic Sword, nothing special. With Charge Spark, Heater Plant, with Biped Legs, and Battle Master. Let's give this one a heavy limit of 0. Just so we can really have some fun with, since we already hit the other 3. Okay, so before I go into explanations, what were your thoughts on this one specifically?
I think the main thing that drew me to was I just thought somehow the fact that Sword was on the head part just seemed very funny to me. I didn't really have like a clear vision for it. I just saw that and I just thought that kind of sounded very goofy. That's kind of I think what drew me in.
Oh, there's a lot of very unique models that have done that, where they make like swords for heads or rifles for heads, and they make very creative ways to get it done. But this one actually is rather interesting because basic Sword is really just a basic melee attack, nothing really special to it, no drawbacks, no benefits, but it's a great balanced skill you can never go wrong with using. Charge Spark, however, does have a rather unique kick to it. It is a basic melee attack that, upon attacking the target, will consume a small amount of charge from the user's own gauge. But instead of using that charge to deal damage, such as, say, Charge Blade, Charge Spark, on the other hand, directly boosts the user's heating and cooling by 50% for their entire next turn. So if you weren't already going fast already, you're about ready to go from 0 to Mach 3 extremely quickly. So this is a very good move to use if you're going to follow it up with something that is very slow, such as, say, Ghost or Ghost Shot that has very low heating and cooling. However, if you do not have any charge in your gauge, then obviously you do not get that heat cool bonus. Heater Plant is a setup skill that, when active, basically will put a plant on the field that boosts all allies' heating by 50%. So basically that means you running to the line to initiate your turn is now notably faster than before. So there's definitely a very notable pattern of a very high speed emphasis with this one in particular. Biped legs will give it very good coverage on generally every terrain as your usual all-rounder kind of leg, and the leg ability of Battle Master is unique, as it grants a damage plus if all 3 of the user's parts have different skill types. Now, to explain this briefly, because this can be confused a little bit, you have skills and then you have skill types or skill effects. The skills are pretty much like shooting, melee, healing, setup, and so on. Battle effects or skill effects are different. Those are things like if it pierces, if it's a scatter skill, if it's an AoE type. It has to have 3 different effect types when equipped in order to get that damage bonus. Now,
so would this currently meet it or no?
Unfortunately, this one doesn't, because Sword and Charge Spark both have piercing as a bonus. Now, what that does mean though is that if they're able to mix the legs on someone that does have that all-rounder type of effect table, then they can benefit from it, which is, of course, the charm of Medarod is mixing things up. So, aside from the emphasis of speed, what are kind of the overall thoughts with this one for you?
I'm not really sure, to be honest. Like I said, the main thing that kind of just drew me in was just sword on head just seemed kind of silly.
I get you.
Yeah.
But, honestly, like I said, yeah, we have 4 very solid contestants here for what we're going to be refining here tonight. Looking at all 4 of these and having taken time to explain all 4 of them, which one's kind of standing out to you the most?
So I think now that you've explained how the skills work a bit more thoroughly, and I understand the synergies and lack thereof, I think I'm leaning towards either 1 or 3. I think those both seem like they could have some pretty good, useful move sets.
Okay. Yeah, honestly, I'd be with you on that one. I mean, personally, I'm between 1 and 4, because my thoughts with 4 immediately is something that has a very high emphasis on speed. So something very very lightweight, very thin-framed, very agile. But option 1 also has some very good possibilities as well with the very diverse kit it brings, and a pretty solid bit of coverage that it brings there too. Because let's say, for instance, if the enemy uses Stat Cleanse, which nullifies all negative ailments for the next hit. Well, guess what? If you apply Scrape first and then Hyper Thunder Shot, well, they're getting stunned whether they like it or not, because now they have no Stat Cleanse.
Right.
So it's fairly synergetic unto itself. So I'd be 100% down with working on option 1 if you're feeling if that's the one that you're feeling.
Sounds good to me.
Alrighty, let's make it happen. So let me put these here. And the nice thing too is if you decide at some point, like you're thinking about in the middle of the night and say, oh, I have a really good idea for this one. Well, there's nothing stopping you. Like, you can still take one of these and just kind of refine it on your own.
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I had a lot of fun doing some of the designs for your Orimeda contest in the Discord.
Oh yes, I've been having a lot of fun with that as well. I'm really hoping to see a lot of entries in these last couple days, but we'll have to see. Alright, so now that that's underway, let me go ahead and organize my tag tables a little bit. Here we go. Okay, let me see here.
How does Metabots handle... So obviously with like sea legs, the idea would be they'd be in sea, but if they're not in the sea, does it just do like the Pokemon thing where they just kind of float?
Basically. Or they'll just kind of slither along the ground. It just depends on the leg. Like,
makes sense.
Like, for instance, Blue Submarine is technically identified as a sea leg, but he's bipedal. He's physically bipedal.
Ah, right, okay.
So it kind of depends ultimately. But, so what are your thoughts overall with the design on this one? Like what are some possibilities we could consider with a, with an overall theme?
So, I'm thinking, I said at the beginning that what kind of pulled this together for me was the idea of sea legs plus Thundershot made me think of Splash Woman from Mega Man 9.
Okay.
And I think something along that line of like Mermaid could be a fun idea. I'm almost imagining that maybe it is like this quite elegant mermaid design, but maybe the disaster arm maybe speaks to something a bit more sinister. Maybe it looks a little bit out of place, even though it is part of the same set.
Okay.
Maybe it's less of a mermaid and more of a siren, and that's like the arm that she drags them down to the depths with or something.
Okay, so we could honestly do that. Funnily enough, I was actually thinking the same thing with Mermaid. So we're already off to a good page on that one. Let me get my...
I always loved, I've completely forgotten her name now, you'll have to remind me here. The one that appeared in the anime, the mermaid bot. I can't remember her name.
Mermaid, yes.
Yes, I always loved her design a lot.
It's a very nice design, honestly. Personally, in the Mermaid line, I'm more partial to Marine Healer, which was the one introduced in Navi.
Let's have to quickly look her up. Oh, okay, yes, I have seen this one. It's also very good, yes.
Yes. Right, so let me get my...
Is there a version of this, of Marine Healer that doesn't have sea legs? Because I swear I've seen something very similar to this that had actual legs.
No, the mermaid line has always been pretty solid with that. What you might be considering is Blazer Mate, which is blue colored but a Sailor Fuku type.
Oh yeah, no, I know Blazer. Oh, I found enough. The one I was thinking of actually popped up in the Google search. Apparently, it's called Fancy Ale.
Oh yes, Fancy Ale, a magical girl
Yeah.
type.
Yeah. She looks quite similar, like color scheme wise. That's why I was getting mixed up.
I could see it. Alright, so... What kind of tail are we figuring for this? Like something long and elegant, or something kind of like a little more subdued?
I think we want long and elegant. I think this is going to be this should be a Medabot that looks very pretty, but perhaps has a bit of a secret, sinister side.
So let's try something a little more... This is just our guide anyway before we actually settle on anything. Maybe something... kind of like a serrated... Like a serrated mermaid tail. Now here's a question, should we apply pelvic fins at some point, or just leave it as a full tail? Because I know some mermaids are portrayed with fins and some are not.
I could go either way on it, honestly.
So let's
You know what? I have to look this up. There's this one mermaid design that I remember seeing a while back. It's a model kit, and I wanted to. I never actually got around to getting it. Running out of shelf space as it is. I'll just send you it on the side. We haven't got to use this as inspiration, but I just think this is a really nice take on like a robot mermaid design. This one does not have those. I don't think I can't tell actually. It might be. It's hard to tell because robot.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of different ways you can interpret it, which is honestly what's been made made this series great. Okay, so let's try something like that. Okay, let me see. Okay, yeah, I could see that. So what we could try... I actually kind of like that split fin design just a little bit better too, so I guess we'll have to explore that when we get to that point.
Yeah!
So what we could do...
Play around with the shapes a little bit.
Yeah, so what we could do... Well, obviously we'll not see it on the front end, is maybe like a long dorsal fin along the back. What do you think?
I could go with that.
Okay, so we can try that. So, let me see here. So let's... Down here. Alright, so this is about where I need it. This was going to be unique in the sense that we're going to be turning the symmetry on and off over the course of this. So, let me think. Something elegant. How could I approach this?
Oh, I've just had an idea for the disaster arm. How we could implement that.
Okay.
Okay, so imagine like a giant crab claw, right?
Okay.
Separate the top and the bottom, and then move it up the arm a little bit so that it looks almost like a big sleeve. And then when she attacks with it, it kind of comes down over the hand, and it's just a giant crushing claw.
Okay.
Like a hidden weapon almost.
I see your vision. I see it. We could make that work.
Big meaty claws.
Maybe apply... Hyper Thundershot would kind of speak for itself. What do you think? Maybe the possibility of a Trident, or do you think that'd be too stereotypical?
I think Trident is fine. I don't think that... It's funny, like you say, too stereotypical. I'm a big fan of, like... I don't think there is a problem with something reading obviously, you know?
No, that's true. Plus, there's... Plus, when it gets to the point where we're reinventing it, trying to think of something unique, it's sometimes better to go back to basics.
Exactly. I'm actually making a board game with some friends, and one issue we've come into occasionally is our artist, who's very, very talented, he does fantastic work on it, occasionally comes up with these ideas, and I'm like, that's a really cool idea, but we need to consider that some people are just going to be playing this game and just looking at a thing and making assumptions. You know, like we could write this really deep lore about why, for example, this character that looks really holy is doing really evil things.
Right.
But most people are going to just see holy-looking character and assume they're doing holy-looking things.
Right, exactly. It's actually funny that you mentioned that, though, because, you ever seen a YouTube channel called, Toon? I was just listening to some of their stuff earlier this afternoon on my way home, but what actually makes their stuff really nice is actually somehow hilariously coincidental that you mentioned that example of, like, looks good, might be good, is, the video I was watching today is, and what I always love is the fact that they take a lot of, like, popular Disney Pixar villains, or even heroes, and basically turn them into, like, essays, and explain, like, what did they do right, what did they do wrong, how do you use this when writing this kind of character? And the theme that they were talking about, specifically with today's video, was how to justify the villain's motives. Like, what is their driving force specifically? And the two biggest, the two examples that they used in that video, one of them was Jafar from Disney's Aladdin. Now, I should also clarify, we're not talking about the trashy live actions, we're talking about the original good ones. But the other one he mentioned, and this is an excellent example because a lot of people forget about this one, is Claude Frollo from Hunchback.
Oh, yeah, great film.
Because a lot of people forget about that movie, and it's one of those largely slept-on classics. And then he explains, yeah, the reason why Claude Frollo was so horrifying as a villain is because he believed he was right. Like, not just the fact that he thought he was, but he genuinely believed he was doing right. And there was, like, not a thought in his mind that could sway him. And if someone tried to convince him that he was wrong, he was convinced it was heresy.
It's a great thing when the villain believes their own hype. Another great example for that in video games, have you played the Borderlands series?
I have heard about it, but it is not something I've played.
That's fair. I'll be honest, I played it with my friend Yomi, and I tried playing it on my own afterwards. They're kind of hard to play on your own. Like, not difficult, just not as much fun by any means when you're playing them on your own.
Exactly, yeah.
But one of the characters in that is a character called Handsome Jack, who is a fantastic example of writing a villain that you love to hate. And at the very end of the game, like after you beat him, whatever, he's like a bloody mess, but he's still like standing and yelling at you.
Somehow you haven't dealt the final blow.
Yeah, I forget his exact line of dialogue, but basically he goes off on one where he's like, what the hell? I'm meant to be the big damn hero here. You're just some mercenary who's meant to die, or something like that. And it's like, yeah, he fully believes his own hype. And I think that makes for a really compelling villain.
Oh, 100%. And I highly recommend the channel, by the way, if you're ever looking for stuff to listen to, like just his background noise. Like, it's honestly amazing the stuff he brings up, and most of the stuff that's like not even mentioned at all. But when you think about it,
it's just called Toon, like Toon.
Toon, yeah. But he does.
Yeah, I'll put it on my watch that list.
Right, but the neat thing is, I'm gonna check my video playlist too, just to make sure it doesn't fall asleep on me. But the really neat thing about it is he covers a lot of things you wouldn't normally think about. Like, for instance, another example that he thought about immediately as a wrathful villain, as a great example, was Titan from Megamind. And he basically broke down, yeah, the reason why he works so well is because first of all, he was also just genuinely selfish. Like, he was only in the game just to get the girl. And when he finds out that he can't get the girl, he just like, alright, well, screw this, I'm doing it my own way then. It's honestly amazing the kind of analysis that he does with the channel. I highly recommend checking it out. Because he covers...
Oh, I'll definitely give it a look.
Because what he does is he covers stuff that they do right, and he does a lot, but he also covers ones that do it wrong, and covers exactly what they did wrong, and how to avoid those mistakes if you're writing those characters.
Do you want to hear my hot take? My really hot take for a villain that I think is actually really poorly written, but a lot of people seem to really enjoy?
Tell me.
Kefka from Final Fantasy VI. I don't get the Kefka hype. Every time I hear people talk about Kefka, they're always like, doing the excited pointing at the screen thing because, it's the Final Fantasy game where the villain wins. And it's like, well, yeah, that is true. but the villain had no motivation. Like he's just a guy that just does bad things because Lamau, fuck you.
Yeah,
you know, like
exactly.
he's got all the depth of a paper bag. And let me just be clear here. He's not the only Final Fantasy villain with this problem. I love the series, but my god, the series has a real problem with its villains being kind of bad.
That's what I've heard with a lot of them, and that's something interesting too that Toon covered. Is villains that do things right, villains that do things wrong. One of the best ones that he said he loves covering because the story writing was so well done, and if you've seen it, you'll definitely agree with me. Is Jack Horner from Puss in Boots 2.
I've not seen it, I'm afraid.
I highly recommend. It was that was beautiful story writing, and the animation was absolutely top notch. Like they go with this really nice toony style that when moments get intense, they purposely cut frames to make it jagged. So it's this really nice artistic style compared to how the first one went with the realism. But the nice thing that he highlights about Jack Horner is the fact that he doesn't have he doesn't have a villainous backstory. He doesn't have a villain arc. He's just bad because he feels like being bad. Like there's no reason for it. He just decides one day he's malicious and there's nothing that can stop him. And there's no redemption to it. Like he doesn't change his mind. He doesn't realize, oh well, maybe this isn't a bad idea. He just thinks it's fun.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just because maybe I'm too good-pilled. I don't know, but I could never really get behind a villain that is like that. It's weird. It just never really worked for me personally.
What are your thoughts on like thin ears of some point, or should I kind of subdue those a little bit?
I think thin ears could be cute.
Okay.
I'm always a big fan of like antenna ears on robots. I mean, I have them myself, so I'm a little bit biased. So I always think like an unusual ear shape on a robot goes well.
Naturally. What kind of style should we do for the head, though? You're thinking something elegant. But I'm drawing up a blank on a hairstyle we could do. And I want to try to avoid... I want to avoid twin tail and long, and just long in the back, because that kind of tie it too close to the Mermaid series. I'm also probably overthinking it.
What about twin tails, but not quite as long? Like more like shorter twin tails, perhaps.
So possibly down to about here, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe about there.
Okay, I could see it. So what should we do for bangs, though? Should we maybe like cover an eye? Should we leave them exposed? Teammate cut.
Ooh, I didn't even think of that. But like having one eye partially covered could be quite fun. Kind of imply that sort of like darker side, and we could have that line up with the disaster arm.
What we can do, let me shape this. Alright. Clear all this out.
So when it comes to doing these like Orimedas, what's your favorite and least favorite type of legs to have to deal with?
It's a good question, honestly. I'd say usually anything that's asymmetrical is kind of funky because it takes more time to have to sit down and kind of process the design proper.
Right.
That'd be my personal take on it. Is generally I don't really mind either way, but it's more the case of trying to translate it into an asymmetrical design.
I getcha. I just hate drawing legs in general.
No, that's valid.
90% of my character concept arts are just like waist up because it gets me out of drawing the legs.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people who complain about doing hands or eyes.
Yes. I don't like hands as much. Like, I don't love them, but I just can't draw convincing legs to save my life.
Something like that.
Unless they're like super cheapified, but then at that point anatomy doesn't really matter as much anyway.
So good. No, hang on. Do... Do this from one side and Now I'm hoping that my tablet decides not to poo-poo on me like it did toward the tail end of Rubens, but we'll have to see. I think it was just a one-off.
Oh no.
Well, I ended up having to reinstall the driver, so whatever happened, hopefully it shouldn't happen again.
Fingers crossed. So far, so good at least.
Well, if we can at least get through the main art, then I won't complain too much. Alright. What do you think? Kind of seeing my vision here?
I think it's cute. I like it.
Alright, so...
Can I suggest on the bangs?
Okay.
I don't know which arm would be the disaster arm, but bring the bangs on that side down a little more to cover that eye just slightly more.
Okay. Okay, I can see it. So kind of like, so we're kind of tying into like a Gorgon territory.
A little bit. I was thinking a bit like kind of, not sure what exactly. Actually, I haven't got an example to hand.
Alright, so what I'll do then, let me turn this off.
Yeah. That's the one. That's the one.
It's the left arm, right? Yes, it is.
Yeah, it gives the vibe of this is a beautiful mermaid, but she's a mermaid that's definitely trouble for you.
Which, according to folklore, is all of them.
That is just yeah, that's true.
Finally, you want to go out of your way to make sure you don't see them, and if you do, then you have every reason to start panicking. But no, that's not what Disney envisioned.
The really fun thing with all the different Medabot designs is you can make a historical mermaid where you just give it the body, arms, and head of a monkey type, and the legs of a fish.
Oh yeah, you absolutely can. you absolutely can. And they actually have done that. They've done that very specifically with a lot of yokai-based ones.
Oh, I could see it. Is there a Medabot based on the... Oh, I'm going to butcher this name. I'm really bad with Japanese pronunciation at the best of time. Kasa Obake, the umbrella guy?
I know which one you're talking about, but I can't say there has been.
Really? That genuinely surprises me. That's like that in my mind is like the go-to for we need to put a yokai in this game.
No, the most common one that was in there since the very beginning was a Tengu, a Crow Tengu. He's been in there since he's from the very first game. They've touched on Kitsune quite a bit over the series. They've touched on
Makes sense.
They've touched on Tanuki. They've touched on a handful of different yokai over the course of the game's history. And then specifically with Medarod S, they implemented a couple of contests a while back where they were designed very specifically to create bots for the Robo-Robodan, because they, quote-unquote, hijacked the channel and instructed the fans to design a brand new concept. The first one
that's great, I love that.
The first one they had a contest for was a Nue type.
Oh, okay.
And they came up with a really banger design for that one, specifically with the Nue called Beast Chimera. And it's really cool because of how they translated the design, gave it the appearance of this very big, imposing menace with differently shaped wheels for the legs. But it had several like snake-like tails that came out of the backside that were like little mini Beastmaster heads.
Ooh, and what was that? Beast Chimera, you said it was called?
Beast Chimera.
Oh, that is an interesting design.
That was an Orimeda, so that was a fan design that was made official. The next one,
yeah, that is cool.
That was actually part of a set, and they kind of developed into it. The second one was a contest with very specific rules. This one was it needed to be female, it needed to be multi-petal, and it also needed to be based on a nine-tailed kitsune. So the design they came up with, and she actually just dropped in Meta Survivor this week, is Koko no Elegy. I can send those as well if you need them. Pull that up here just so I can have them.
Is it K? If I'm searching, would it be KO? KO?
It's CO.
CO.
Here we go. I got it sent to you.
Ah, thank you. Oh, that's an interesting design. I like it.
And it's neat because you look at it going, where are all the tails? And then if you count all the legs, that's 4 of them. And then the little protrusions, on the hip area are actually more tails. So it's very unique. And the shadow figure on the backside of the legs is the kitsune.
See, it's funny because as soon as you started saying, they've done like Tanuki Medabot, Kitsune Medabot, it's funny. Obviously, those are yokai, but for some reason, I don't think of them as such because they're in just everything. It's like that. Yeah, Kitsune's its own thing, obviously, but no, it's a yokai clearly. Obviously.
Exactly. But yeah, that was the second one I was introduced. The third.
Zordon's comment here. It's Tearlament's Medarot. Tearlament is a Yu-Gi-Oh archetype that's very infamous in the fan base. It consists of a bunch of mermaids, and the whole gimmick of the deck is that they want to be sent to the graveyard, and whenever they're sent to the graveyard, you get to fusion some of them into another one. It was, for a while, the best deck in Yu-Gi-Oh, and some people would say it is the best deck Yu-Gi-Oh has ever seen. So a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players kind of have a bit of PTSD when they see mermaids now.
Oh, fun. Well, it looks like we're going to be playing around with that kind of theming here, and you're going to have lots of feedback to
they're really good. They are really good designs, though. They're kind of like... The lore they are part of involves this character called Visa Starfrost, who is extremely uninteresting, going to different parallel universes and finding parallel universe versions of himself on planets that are all themed around a particular emotion. So the Tearlaments are based around sadness, so they're all very gloomy, emo-looking mermaids, but they are very cute.
Okay. Yeah, and then the last one that was introduced in that series, that was fan design, had a very specific theming of it needed to be float-legged, it needed to be male, and it was required to have a theme of Ouroboros.
Oh, okay.
And the winning design of that one, let me dig through these real quick, here we go, was a Ouroboros, obviously based design, named Deathglare.
Ooh. Oh, that's cool, I like that a lot.
And the arms actually are also snakes that are in the form of circles. And it has this really neat little synergy where it specializes in breaking its arms and by overloading them. Or overloading one arm to break it, and then using a head skill to bring it back again and do the whole thing over again.
That is really neat.
Right,
I love when games come up with ways to kind of incorporate theming through mechanics. Another great example for that with Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually, there's an archetype, it's not very good, but there's a deck called Nimlaria, and the entire archetype is around this one card called Dreaming Nimlaria, and it's just a little girl that's sleeping.
Uh-huh.
And without going through the full explanation of how the mechanic works, she ends up going face up on top of your extra deck where all your like fusion monsters and such live.
Uh-huh.
She dreams about big monsters made of cake, which then remove the cards from underneath her, and then once you run out of cards to remove, she summons herself to the field, she wakes up, she destroys a bunch of your opponent's monsters, and then she puts the cards back in the extra deck and goes back to sleep. It's really good.
Huh. Interesting. That's
I think the other really big success one is one called Valmonica, which is... It involves a mechanic called pendulum summoning, where you put monsters as spells. This is the part that tends to lose a lot of people when they kind of come back to Yu-Gi-Oh! After not playing it for a while.
Uh-huh.
But
I'm told it's extremely turbulent.
It focuses on these two cards that are literally supposed to be the angel and the devil sitting on your shoulder.
Okay.
It's not a particularly strong deck, but it's very fun that you've just got these, this little devil girl and this little angel girl sitting in your spell zones, giving you different effects.
I can definitely see that as a, it's kind of like playing, as one example that I can think of immediately, it's kind of like a prankster-style Banette, because I'm told Mega Banette's like an absolute headache for people.
Man, so, my friend Yomi loves Banette. It's like her favourite Pokemon ever.
I mean, it's a good design.
It really is. But I feel so bad for her, because I remember Yomi and I kind of got Yomi back into Pokemon after she hadn't played it for a while. And we were playing around the time when I started putting in the Mega Evolutions.
Okay.
And in fact, Yomi was like far better than I was. Like, Yomi would routinely destroy me. I was not good at Pokemon back then.
Right.
But I felt bad for her because Mega Bayonet has the ability Prankster.
Right. That's what a lot of people used it for, was Prankster.
Yeah, and it's a really good ability. And I don't know if they changed this, but in the game where they first added Mega Bayonet, the turn when you turned it Mega, it didn't benefit from Prankster.
No, you'd have to stall a turn and wait.
Yeah, and I always felt really bad because it's like, why? Every other ability just works immediately. Why should this one not? And I think they did change how it worked eventually, but we weren't really playing at the time. My big one when it comes to Pokemon, my big complaint, which I am somewhat famous for, my favorite Pokemon is Magnemite. Always has been
Good
like
choice.
one of my favorites. He's just a little guy. He's just a little guy.
Personally, I'm more a fan
I
of
don't know.
Magneton over Zone, but that's just me.
No, you're correct. Not even valid. You are correct. I do not like Magnezone. I like Magneton a lot more than Magnezone. I think Magnezone is actually a big step in the wrong direction from a design standpoint.
I mean, I could see where they're going with it, like using the high-intensity electrical energy to fuse the bodies into one. I get it, but yeah, it's one of those designs you either love it or you hate it.
I like the idea. I just don't like the execution.
Yeah, exactly.
I think is the best way of summarizing it.
No, 100%.
But my big gripe with Magnemite. Now, Kuura, you obviously know a little bit about Pokemon. You're obviously quite familiar as you recognize them. Have you ever watched a Magnemite moving, just going about its business?
It's kind of this little floaty Magnemite, and its little magnets kind of like just spin in circles.
Yeah, so it floats. That's a very clear, definite thing that it does. It hovers. It levitates above the ground.
Right.
Do you know what abilities Magnemite gets?
I know for the longest time one of them wasn't levitate.
It still doesn't get levitate.
Now, people argue, but it gets
cannot
magnet pull.
Okay, I hate that it gets magnet pull so much because this is flavor over mechanics in a bad way because magnet pull never benefits you as Magnemite. Like, no, steel type Pokemon can't flee. Okay, but you're Magnemite. You
Yeah,
can't
exactly.
do anything to them.
You're not even touching the ground. Why does Earthquake affect you? I don't know.
Yeah, and the one that got me really salty for the longest time, which has been changed. I was salty for many, many years that of all Pokemon, they gave a freaking Gengar Levitate. That famously very bad Pokemon that clearly needs assistance in being relevant in the metagame, Gengar. Clearly needed a buff.
Apparently, because he was popular.
Yeah.
Well,
I think they did change it, but it still bothers me to this day that he even had it at one point.
Personally, my whole favorites are all very niche as well. I mean, if you were to ask me my dream team, it would be Claydol, Golurk, and Garganacl.
Oh, those are some good choices actually. I'm actually quite a big fan of. Oh no, sorry, Garganacl. So I was thinking. Sorry, you said Garganacl, and for some reason my mind was imagining. Oh gosh, I suddenly forget its name. Barbaracle? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. But no, Garganacl also very good.
Well, see, here's the neat thing too, because a lot of people didn't realize, because they're like, oh, it's basic rock type, pass. And I get it, rock type has not always been known to be the best in coverage, which I understand that. But then again, my other two mentioned specifically are both ground. One of them is ground psychic, the other is ground ghost. But the difference is, Garganacl, I really, really wish they gave him an extra type, because that would have made him obscenely good. Not that he wasn't already. Is his special skill of Salt Cure. Because the way it works, it's a DOT. But what makes the DOT more potent is the fact is if you use it on water or steel type specifically, it eats a quarter of their health every turn. Otherwise,
Oh, that's really nice.
Otherwise, it's an eighth of their health. Period.
Oh, that's really cool. I like that.
And that makes it exceedingly good for DOT stuff, especially if you're trying to play the long game. So if you pair that off with something that does a lot of that's trying to outlast you, and it's made it abundantly clear it's trying to outlive you, well, if you throw Salt Cure on there at least once and they can't fix it, all you have to do is just live.
And presumably I would imagine it's like a, what's the word? I'd imagine that you can't really be immune to it because it's not like poison where it's an actual stats effect.
Actually, here's the cool thing too about Garganacl is the fact that its natural ability, Salt Cure, or Purifying Salt, it's immune to almost every negative ailment that you could throw at it.
Oh, that's really good.
Now, stat debuffs, it still takes, but stuff like Burn, Poison, Paralyze, guess what? You can't use Thunder Wave on this guy. It's a waste of a turn because he's just going to shake the whole thing off.
That's pretty cool.
So the neat thing that I've seen some people do, if they want to somehow make him relevant, is they'll use Garganacl with Wide Guard because he's going to intercept everything, but because of purifying salt, if they're trying to use an ailment, it's gonna fail immediately because he's intercepting it and nullifying it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the problem though is the fact that again, as basic rock, his type coverage is really not all that great, and that sucks.
Yeah.
Now, in the other
one of my
cases-
other favorites. Oh, yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, talk about unfortunate typing. Like, one of my other favorites, well, probably one of my longest favorites is Bulbasaur. You know, it's a very not original choice, sure, but yeah, I've always loved Bulbasaur. But
That's just for
the unfortunate reality that I've had to come to terms with is the fact that the starters are really not made equally. By which I mean, water and fire are significantly just better types in a vacuum than grass. And it kind of sucks.
I think the problem with it is Bulbasaur is one that requires investment, but if you are able to build on that investment, he becomes obscenely good. Like, I've seen people that build a Venusaur for sustain, and they'll give it a move pool like Sleep Powder, Toxic, Giga Drain, and Leech Seed, and that sucker will just bleed you dry while you're trying so hard to knock it into the ground. You're basically killing yourself off trying to outdamage it.
Yeah.
Let's see.
That's pretty cool.
What do you think I should do for the bottom side of the tail?
I'm not sure. Could just be as simple as having like it divided along lengthways and just a different color on the bottom potentially.
Do that. Maybe something like.
It's funny. I actually had a character, and I would say who had a tail instead of legs. She was more of a snake type thing rather than a mermaid, but I learned the hard way. It's not the easiest thing to try to draw. There are a lot of retries on that one.
Yeah, it takes a level of finesse. You gotta kind of play with.
Yeah. Especially if you're trying to like detail the entire thing with scales, that was not fun.
Yeah, I'm definitely not doing that with this one.
No, definitely don't. Definitely don't.
No. I'm not doing that. We'd be here all night if I did something like that.
Yeah.
And that we definitely would not be clearing under the 3 hours I usually like to keep my streams at.
On the topic of like monster collection games, how are you when it comes to the Digimon?
I was into the show as a kid, and then kind of fell off after a while. I've stayed mostly in touch with it, on a, I'm just gonna call it a platonic on a platonic perspective, where like I keep in mind, and I have friends that keep up to date with it and talk about like all the new games and the new designs, but I just don't stay up to date with it myself.
Oh, that's fair. I only asked because Digimon's going to be getting a new game soon, which I'm actually very much looking forward to.
I did hear about that. Yeah, it's getting a new game, and I hear a lot of folks have been extremely excited about that.
They've shown off a few of the remodels or remodeling they've done for the Digimon, and they do look fantastic.
Now,
I really hope this is just.
Now here's the question: are they including Omedamon somewhere in there? Because after the waves he made
in
the Digimon fandom, you can't just
They haven't shown him, but man, I really hope they do, because it's a really fucking cool design.
Exactly.
I love that design so much.
I mean, realistically, you know, he was so popular when that collab came out. He was made canon. Like how successful do you have to be to literally become canon from a collaboration, which was designed exclusively to be a one-off?
It's one thing that I love with Digimon, where they will just like sometimes make a little guy just as a one-off thing, and they're like, no, we're doing this now. Like there is have you seen Digimon Tamers? That's one with Takato and Guillemon.
Yes, I remember watching that series.
Okay, so do you remember near the end of the series, Impmon digivolves into Beelzemon?
What's his face? Impmon, I think?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, at some point, they got an artist to draw a Digimon that is literally, what if we took Beelzemon, but made him into a woman with huge bazongas?
I think I've seen that one floating around, yeah.
Yeah, and that's just a Digimon that exists now. That's just Belle Starmon now, that just exists. And she is going to be in the new game, in fact.
I mean, hey, let's be real. Hot waifu sells.
Oh, I am. Believe you me, I am not complaining. I can assure you.
That's kind of how it is. Have you seen the definition of fan service? You know, that's just kind of how it is.
Look, Andrew would want to look a lot of things in me as an impressionable young helmet. Okay, I'm just gonna say it.
They're making me think things I shouldn't, and I own a translation. That's actually, it's funny enough though with that too. To a minor tangent. I was talking, I think it was with my stream with Emeraldo when I had him on my channel. We got to talking about the Sonic movie, the Sonic trilogy actually, and 3 was so well done. I'm excited for 4. I'm very excited for 4. But
so you remember from our little quiz session, I am not someone that watches a lot of movies. I don't see many movies at all. But I have gone and seen all 3 of the Sonic trilogy, and I have to say I liked all of them.
They were
but
well
I must say, I can't think of another movie series that I've seen, which again isn't many, admittedly, but I can't think of any other movie series where each sequel has just been better than the last one.
Oh yeah,
they only get better with each entry.
That is a lost art in media. You just don't see it anymore these days because it's just that rare. But let me see. Jordan also says in the chat, Renamon and Sakuyamon.
Oh yeah, Sakuyamon, absolutely. Venommon's not so much my speed, but I get it. It's not for me, but I get it.
Yeah, exactly. But brain work with me. But yeah. So obviously, a lot of people are asking if since Sonic 3 is based off of Sonic Adventure 2, obviously, where's Rouge the Bat? Because that was the game she was introduced in. Where's Rouge? Where's our Master Thief Batgirl? And obviously, the director couldn't ignore that question forever, so he just kind of came out and said it. And he said, guys, listen, I'm going to be real with you. I understand where you're coming from. I personally also like Rouge the Bat. However, I chose not to introduce her because when I was a kid and first played Sonic Adventure 2, as a teenager, she made me think a lot of things I'm looking back on probably should not have been thinking as a small child. So, given that this movie will be seen by lots of children of many ages, I didn't want to implement that curse on this generation. So, unfortunately...
He really just said, we're not putting Rouge in this movie so we don't make more furries.
So unfortunately, no, there is no hot bat lady in the movie. I'm sorry, guys. I couldn't do that.
See, I think they could get away with putting Rouge in the movie. But if they used her, I think it was her Sonic Heroes design, where she had like a bodysuit, admittedly, but she was a lot more covered, you know?
Yes, an actual like operative suit.
Yeah, like, I think if they did want to put her in the movie, that would probably be the way they would go about doing it.
Probably. So what are we thinking so far?
I'm liking it. It's just that perfect combination of dangerous but alluring.
Exactly. And
that's exactly what I think we want to go for.
When I finish the main art, I go back to do some profile sketches of the sides and everything. I might actually include the dorsal fin on the back side, like I was saying earlier, because I am really liking that possibility. But what was I saying? Yeah. So obviously he did kind of annoy a lot of people. He's like, "Come on, man, it's Rouge. That was the game that Rouge was introduced in. You can't just skip out on Rouge." But at the same time, a lot of people also argue that it's kind of abundantly clear at this point that even though the movies are following the course of a game, they're not directly taking it one for one.
Yeah.
So
they're very much their own thing.
Exactly. I mean, just with the way they ended Sonic 3 going and teased into Sonic 4, they've already teased, first of all, what's Amy doing and how did she get to Green Hill specifically? Because her origin story is definitely not how they're portraying it so far. But I think that's what people are
heck, look at the first 10 minutes of the first movie with the Weird Owl character who never gets seen again. Like that definitely wasn't any version of Sonic Can I'm familiar with.
Exactly. But the cool thing is that they tie back to it so many times as a driving plot point. And that's honestly what I like, is they go back and they reference things to make sure that you've been paying attention, or something that they feel is important later on in the series. For instance, when Sonic when at the closer end of Sonic 3, where he was about ready to kill Shadow, like he had him in his grasp, he was ready to do it, and Shadow was goading him, he takes it back and says, "I can't do it." And it ties back to a lesson that he learned from her, that it's just not important, that revenge isn't worth it in the long run.
Yeah.
And it was used as a driving force to develop Shadow. So I'm excited. I just really hope that they do my boy Metal Sonic more justice, because it was great seeing him in the movie, but I really hope they give him more of a role aside from just, a peon enemy. Like, realistically, he's the greatest thing Eggman's ever designed. You can't just show him up once or twice and then just call it a day. The fans are not gonna have it.
See, it's funny because when I was little, my introduction to Sonic was very strange. I didn't have a Sega Genesis growing up, or a Mega Drive as we call them here. I only had the Master System, and the Master System Sonic games are, like, they're fine. As far as 8-bit Sonic games go, like, you know, they're decent enough experiences.
Right.
But you don't really get much lore or story out of them. So, growing up, my main exposure to the concept of Sonic having, you know, plot was via a British-only comic called Sonic the Comic.
Okay.
Which I believe is often referred to as, like, Fleetway Sonic in America.
Okay.
And it had some very weird ideas that have never appeared in any other Sonic media. But genuinely, I would love to see them tackle them. The two big ones is Metal Sonic. So in the comic, Metal Sonic appears as an entity called Metallics. And he is a long-running villain that culminates in becoming like a giant red version of himself with an entire army of Metal Sonics called like the Metallics Empire. And they, like, if I remember correctly, they take over the Death Egg after Sonic kicks Eggman out of there, and like they're a major threat. And I'm like, that's a pretty cool idea for a story. You could do something very cool with that.
Right, exactly.
And the other one was how they handled Super Sonic. This one, I think, genuinely, they need to do something with this one. So in the comics, in Sonic the Comic, when Sonic goes Supersonic, he becomes this out-of-control monster. He's completely berserk, has no idea where he is, attacks anything indiscriminately, and like the very first time he does it, the scene of him powering down, he's like laughing maniacally, and the laughter just like fades off as he reverts back to normal. Yeah, very Jekyll and Hyde.
I actually know which comic you've been talking about. Yeah, I've seen bits of those surfaced every now and then on those character analyses of certain characters, like, and they go back and check.
Okay, yeah, so you might have heard of this part then, where this culminates in them doing a sort of exorcism on him, where they kind of excise Supersonic, who goes on to become his own separate entity, but he has amnesia and doesn't know who he is or where he comes from. And I'm just like, that's a really interesting angle. Bit much for, like, you know, a kid's comic, admittedly, but genuinely a very cool take on the idea.
I could see it. I could see that as a possibility, definitely. But, yeah, the nice thing about the movies is that they're not following anything discriminately, so they could take it a bunch of different ways and justify it, because, realistically, you know, who's going to stop them? Because they've already kind of deviated from the plots, from a lot of them, but they've also made it abundantly clear that they're not directly following any plots on purpose.
I think that's kind of the art to the modern video game movie. Because if you look at, you know, the old ones, you know, like the old Bob Hoskins Mario Bros. Or Street Fighter with Kylie Minogue, they just didn't care at all about the story. They're just like, yeah, we're going to put some characters in that have the same names.
You're here to play it just to have fun. You're not here for a story.
Yeah. Whereas I think, you know, you look at the modern movies, look at, say, your Sonic the Hedgehogs, the new Mario Bros. Movie, that was very good.
Oh, it was fantastic. I'm excited for the sequel.
What was the other one? Detective Pikachu. Another very good movie. I think because these movies were kind of not directly setting out to emulate or ape a specific game, but more just like taking the idea of that franchise and doing its own thing with it, I think that's the more successful formula.
It is. Because they're not emulating something directly, but they're still unique enough that people recognize certain plot points.
Yes.
That's
and then there's the Minecraft movie, and I'll say no further than that.
I really don't know what they were thinking with that one, but you know what? I'm told that as cringy as it was good in the bad way. Like it's
I mean, here's the thing.
It's a brain rot
I'm
kind
sure,
of movie.
Yeah, I'm sure the target audience of, you know, 8-year-olds probably loved it. And you know what? Fair play to them. I watched a lot of crap when I was 8 years old as well, and I wouldn't want anyone taking that away from me.
Yeah, I get it, but it's its own genre, I'll put it that way. Not something that you want to... Now, I'd actually have to disagree slightly with the Detective Pikachu movie, because personally, I thought it was pretty good, But then again, I'm also slightly biased because I spent both times I watched the movie hunting out every instance of Go Lurk I could find. And I counted about 8 or 9. But in my defense, and you have to agree with it, seeing a 9-foot tall steaming stone golem like that guarding a door is really hard to ignore.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You have to give me credit for that one.
Absolutely, yeah.
you have to give me
Funny
credit.
enough, I actually think that for the longest time, Detective Pikachu was, in my opinion, the better video game movie. But I think these days I lean ever so slightly towards Sonic 3 being just slightly better as a video game movie specifically.
No, I could see it. I'll come back to that one. No, I definitely understand. Sonic. Honestly, I'd say Sonic 2 did really well too, because whoever's choice it was to decide on Idris Elba as Knuckles was like the smartest move ever.
My only complaint with 2 is I think 2 needed a little bit of a cut here or there, because the entire sort of middle bits with the whole wedding subplot was completely pointless and added nothing to the movie. I would rather have had more time with the hedgehog than that.
That's fair. I think it was mostly...
But the parts where Sonic was doing Sonic things were great.
Yeah, and like I said, Idris obviously had a lot of fun doing Knuckles.
Yeah.
You can very obviously
the
tell
fact
that.
they got Keanu for Shadow is still hilarious to me.
I mean, let's be real. If you're gonna pick somebody to voice a gun-loving, edgy hedgehog that literally has space-time power, and again, lots of guns, who better than quite literally John Wick?
Yeah, you're not even wrong. I'm not even saying it was a bad choice. It's just really funny that they got him to do it.
Oh, 100%. And actually, what's really cool too is a lot of folks commented on it as well, like in the back end. He says, yeah, whenever Keanu was on set, he was studying. Like he didn't come in just to do a role. He studied Shadow like as a character analysis. So he came in, he was prepared to be Shadow.
Mm.
And that's something that a lot of people really appreciated though, because he did the role really well.
Yeah, I mean, I've never heard anyone say a bad thing about Keanu Reeves, frankly, like as a person.
No.
You know.
I'm told literally from everywhere I've read, he's like one of the nicest people they've ever met.
Yeah.
Which we need a lot more of these days.
It's quite funny though, because I just got done playing Cyberpunk 2077, and that is playing a complete bastard.
You gotta love characters that can do multi-roles like that, though.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
So what I'm thinking of, just kind of tying into this, is for the disaster arm, I want to kind of tie in a little bit of a Gorgon theme.
Okay.
So what I'm thinking of is kind of like a crusted stone going up the arm,
Okay. I can see it.
and then an actual like clawed hand on this side,
Hmm.
and then this side would just be a regular hand, holding a trident.
Hmm.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I could imagine this Medabot kind of like their idol stance, if you like. They pose themselves in a way where the disaster arm's kind of hidden. Again, trying to hide that kind of more fiendish side of themselves.
Hiding the hand behind their back.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so there we go. This is what I was looking for. That's okay. There we go.
I forget if I've ever asked you this, Kuura. How familiar are you with Gundam?
I know of it. I'm not gonna say I'm knowledgeable, but I know a handful of them.
That's fair. The only reason why I was asking specifically is because I would recommend for you at some point to just look up a few designs, specifically from G Gundam. The designs in G Gundam are absurd in the best way possible.
Yeah, that's the general opinion I've heard about it.
Yeah.
I've been hearing a lot of memes about G-Quux recently too, and being completely honest, I can definitely understand why people kind of were leery about it, because its art style is definitely banked on being unique.
Yes, I'm not a fan of it, I'll be honest. I haven't been watching it. But
Now-
you know what, that's fine.
Now here's the thing I learned. Do you know why the art style is so weird? But, like, there's a very specific reason. After you hear this, you're gonna be like, okay, you know what? I get it.
Are you talking about the in-universe or the
No,
meta reason why?
No, I'm talking about like the studio that did them.
Oh, is it like the Evangelion artist
Yes,
was the designer?
It's the studio that did Evangelion. I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
That explains everything.
It does. It makes sense. I understand what they're going for. It's not my vibe, but that's fine. You know, I like a lot of stuff that other people don't like. It's okay if they make a Gundam series where I don't vibe with it.
Right. But see, here's the cool thing too, and as weird as that art style is, it kind of grows on you after a while. Like, it's not something you're going to admit. Okay, yeah, I'm in absolute love with this thing because it is a very weird art style. Okay, I agree.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it does soften the blow a little bit, knowing that it was the developers, it was the studio behind Evangelion, a little bit.
Yeah.
However,
I do know the in-universe explanation behind why everything looks so weird as well. Is that it's essentially a parallel universe, or an AU, I suppose I should say.
That as well.
Yeah. What if the Xeon won the war, so everything looked different? Which is.
That's what I heard too. Is that apparently it's an alternative reality where the Xeon forces were successful.
Yeah.
Which
is quite funny because one of the designs from there is. It looks like a mobile suit called a Gym, but they call it a Gelgoog, which is a different Xeon mobile suit. The idea being that in the world where Xeon won, they just stole the Gym, and that's the Gelgoog now.
Yeah, I was about to mention that one, and I do have to mention this as well. Is they designed a really good gun tank.
You know what? I will not throw shade on the gun tank. I do like the gun tank. The gun tank is very good.
Whoever designed the gun tank design for G-Quux was amazing. Like, that is legitimately something that I could see myself using or enjoying because it is a really cool design. Like putting the arms on like a rail system built onto the turrets instead of the torso. I thought that was a really cool option. That was really well done.
I will say this though, although I do really enjoy the gun tank from the series, it's not my favourite one. My favourite one is, I'll send it to you on the side here. This is from Mobile Suit Gundam Thunderbolt. I don't know why, I just love how bulky this gun tank is, and the fact they actually gave it a pair of hands so it can still, use things.
I'm familiar with Thunderbolt primarily because one of my Gundams of choice, if I had to pick a mobile suit I enjoyed, would have been the full armor Thunderbolt.
Good choice. Very good choice.
I will not deny that's one of them.
I don't think there's a single mobile suit from that series that I would say is a bad choice. Frankly, they're all very good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd say the Psycho is also one of my on that list for me as well.
Funny enough for me, I think my favourite one from that one is actually just the ground type Gundam. It's not really very flashy. It's just got like a pair of sub arms that hold the shield and the rifle when it's not using it. I just think it's neat.
Yeah, definitely. But I also did a lot of SD Battle Alliance when that game was the it thing, and then just kind of disappeared. So I picked up a lot of designs from there that I also liked. Basically, my general idea was if it's a full armor, like the full armor Thunderbolt or the Unicorn, I'll take it.
Full armor Unicorn's very good. I actually have a friend that owns the perfect grade of that. It's a monster.
Yeah, I can imagine that being a absolute monster. Yeah. Actually, looking at my model kits too, the other ones that I really did enjoy, mostly just because I liked the aesthetic of them, was Aegis.
Oh, that's from Seed, right?
Yeah. The red one. I was really hoping for the longest time that they would have implemented it into SD Gundam, but they never did.
I'm surprised, because I know that Seed is like extremely popular in Japan.
I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of folks were trying to talk me into getting GB4 when it came out too, but by the time I thought about it and actually had the money on hand to even consider it, it kind of started fading out.
So I played through all of GB4 on stream, and I'll say this about it. I enjoyed my time with it, but my enjoyment of it was directly tied to the fact that I am very much a big fan of the franchise. Yeah. I think if you're someone that's not super into Gundam, you may possibly not get as much from it.
Right.
Like, the combat's fine. It's
you're missing
it's
out
fun,
on a lot
but it's
of
not
context.
Deep. Kind of that, but also just insofar as I think a lot of the selling point is the idea that you see these Gundams that you know about, You can still enjoy it from a generic robot builder standpoint, I'd imagine, but I think if you are someone that isn't hugely into the series, you might find it occasionally a bit limiting in that regard. Like, you can't mix legs, for example.
Right, I get you.
I still enjoyed the heck out of it, but yeah.
It's either something you're really into or you're not at all.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you're not huge into the series, I'd say maybe see if it's on sale at some point. I wouldn't say it's like worth a full price buy if you're not already a massive Gundam fan.
100%.
I will say it's still fun playing single player though. Like, you haven't got to play with friends for it to be fun. I did the whole thing as single player and had a fun time with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a game that you can enjoy multiplayer with, and it's kind of built to be with an emphasis on multiplayer. That one's kind of a given. But
yeah. But it still works alright without it, thank you.
Yeah, it still has a pretty decent hold on, so how do I want to approach this? Thing. I want to try to go for something a little stylish with it, but I haven't I
have a joker, yes, all the Gatling guns. When I was playing when I played GB4, my mobile suit design philosophy was I am going to have as many Gatling guns as the game will physically allow me to have. I think I kept out at about 12.
Oof.
And about 8 of them fired simultaneously.
Translation. Lots and lots of DACA.
Yes. It worked out that I had 100% Gatling gun uptime between all my different Gatling guns. Like, I didn't do any melee attacks because I didn't need to. I just held down the Gatling button and things died.
I mean, hey, whatever works. That actually sounds a lot like that actually sounds a lot like the build I've been doing in Medarot Duel after I discovered I got Citra back up and running to try out. Because I ran a survey on my channel a little while ago, and people keep asking me, "Hey, when are you gonna stream Medarot games?" I'm like, I've thought about it. I just haven't gotten around to deciding which ones yet and how I want to do it. So I remembered, hey, wait, I still have Citra sitting on my computer from years ago. That is fairly stable. Well, they definitely fixed things a lot from the V1 when Nintendo was super anal on enforcing that nobody was on it. But I got it back up and running again. And one of my favorite builds I found out that I liked was basically a high mobility, high cooldown Gatling build. And how that worked was I would run Cycle Load, which is basically like the equivalent of a cooldown booster. So essentially, if your cooldown was, say, like 5 seconds before you could restart it again, running the cycle booster reduced it from about 8 seconds to about, or 5 seconds down to about 2.5. And then you were completely loaded up and could launch and could go again. So I would run a cycle boost with a lower scale Gatling, which I could use while I'm moving. And then I'd also run a higher artillery Gatling, which locked me where I was standing for the duration that I was shooting. But yeah, I had fun with that so far. I actually kind of discovered accidentally too that the last time I played, I had discovered, I don't know how I did, but I found it, a code that actually gave me all parts, even the alt colors. So I've been playing around just kind of learning the game again, because the last time I touched Citra was like 2021. So I'm very out of the loop. But I also was asking if, since I have them, possibly like getting screenshots for the Metapedia, because there's still a lot of stuff that it's missing. And I'm thinking, hey, this would be something really cool that we could add to the Metapedia, you know, for people that are looking for references. Because I see a lot of art every now and then of people that are wanting to do like alt colors, or want to do the alt colors of ones that got it. Get that angle where I want. Because there were some really neat alt colors for some that were designed. Still don't like how this is running. There we go. That's
I think the shape's good.
Yeah, I'm just trying to translate the shape properly with the angle.
Yeah, the angle, I see it.
Center code. There we go. That's what I'm looking for.
You know, you were saying like people asking, you know, we can be playing Medarot games on the channel. If you ever did do that, one thing that I would, you know, personally really be interested to see, as I was saying earlier, how I had trouble with the Game Boy Advance game, like, you know, just as a suggestion, if you wanted to do like basic like video tutorials on like the mechanics that the game doesn't tell you about. That's the sort of thing I would definitely be interested in watching myself.
I really think, I mean, I don't think it should be too much of an issue to pick it up either, because I'm told that the later games actually did a little better explaining its mechanics, a lot better than Kuura did. Now, a lot of people will complain all about Medarot 1 all they want, because even when I talked to Variant and Wise, who were like the two driving forces behind that game getting translated, the game's code, spaghetti code, was held together with duct tape, prayers, and lots of sweat. Like I joked with them when I interviewed about, you know, very early in the Medarot 3 translation, and they're like, no, you're right. That's basically how it was. So based on how that when I spoke with Variant about it later, closer to Medarot 3's completion, they're like, oh yeah, this code is a whole lot more refined than 2 or any other title. So they had, I'm not gonna say it was easier, because there was still just so much that they had to translate, because as far as lines of text are concerned, but
right.
It worked itself out. And the biggest problem now that we're having is just we need people to be able to help translate, because it just has so much text. Or if you can't translate, you can also donate to it. I comment on this every week. There's a link in my weekly videos to a crowdfunding that Variant set up, so we can commission those lines of text to be translated and ease the workload. So all they have to do is just typesetting.
Right.
So far, no bites, but I'm just going to keep advertising for it when I can.
Yeah, of course. Why not?
So here's what we're
It's
getting
funny
at
you
so
saying
far.
how like the first. I think she's looking great. I'm really glad with it.
Having a handle right here though instead, kind of.
Yeah, a little bit of something there, couldn't hurt.
A little easier to grip on.
It's funny you saying how like the first game was so much more like, you know, held together with duct tape and hope. When you think about it, quite a lot of big franchises start that way. Like, you know, Pokemon Red and Blue famously barely works. I think my favorite example is Final Fantasy 1, where about half of that game just does not work. Like, the magic stat in that game does nothing. Half the spells do nothing. It's amazing that it got a sequel when you really look at it.
I think what they were doing, and the generally accepted consensus is, they used Medarot 1 as kind of a proof of concept more than actually putting anything together, just to see if it worked. And when it was received, and they found out, yeah, we could actually make something, you know, do something better with this, they refined Medarot 2 and later titles like no one's business. Like, they went as far as adding completely new mechanics to 2. Like, for instance, Metaforce didn't exist in 1. So, if you were down to the wire and you had no head skills left, you were done. Like, there was no point in you continuing the fight, because you had literally nothing left that you could pull out to turn the tables. Medarot 3,
yeah, I think I ran into that situation a couple times, actually.
Yeah, Medarot 3 introduced Meta Change, which was with all the transforming models. They also introduced, I want to say that they also introduced Medallia, which is the mini crystals I mentioned in the What is Medarot, which were like boost to personality or extra passives. So they introduced a lot more mechanics and even a whole lot more mini games and battle types. For instance, Medarot 4 was also known for introducing a 9v9 battle style, which they actually introduced fairly recently in Medarot S as a event type. And it's basically, as the name implies, it is a 9-man marathon, and no one wins until the last bot falls.
Is it like you tag out after someone dies, or all 9 on the field at one time?
If someone tags out, you have somebody in waiting that's ready to take their place at a moment's notice.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
And it's just a 9-round marathon. And it's actually... It sounds really cool, and it seems really easy, because you're like, okay, cool, if I just build 9 really strong Metarots, then I should have no real problem. Well, here's the thing about how it behaves, is you also have to be really careful on the placement and who's willing to, and who dies and when they die. Because if somebody in slot 2 dies too early, and they come in with their first reserve, but the slots 1 and 3 are still active on bot 1, it could completely throw off the synergy.
Right, I can imagine it, yeah. I'm picturing it now.
So it's got a lot of ups and downs, and if done right, it can be super fun. but you have to really think about how you put your team together and your reserve. Let's see.
It kind of makes me a little bit sad in some regards. Like, you talking about how they just kind of iterated and improved on it. I kind of miss when that's what sequels were, where they're just like, well, okay, you like this? We're going to give you more of this and just make it better. Whereas these days it feels like if you get a new title in a franchise, there's like a very good chance it's a completely different kind of game that you might not even like. And that kind of sucks.
You have to really... It's essentially where they get to the point where they either reinvent the wheel too heavily, having to think of new stuff, and they kind of lose the soul of it, or they miss the mark and they don't implement enough, and it feels like it's just a rehash of the previous game.
I think my favourite example for this is the Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon original trilogies. I love those games. The Crash games are some of my favourite games of all time. Like, I can play those games endlessly. But if you play them back to back, you realise something, which is Crash 1, Spyro 1, yeah, okay, they're a little bit rough around the edges, but they're fine. Crash 2 and Spyro 2, okay, there's a little bit more gameplay variety, there's a few different gameplay styles, but it's still very good. And then once you get to Crash 3 and Spyro 3, you're actually spending like a very surprisingly little amount of time doing regular Crash or Spyro gameplay. In fact, I actually counted once. In Crash Bandicoot 3, there are fewer levels where you are engaging in standard Crash Bandicoot platform gameplay than levels where you're doing something else. Like, you're riding a motorcycle, or in an airplane, or underwater, or whatever. And some of these are still fun, but
they just don't have the same
play Crash Bandicoot because I want to play Crash Bandicoot.
They just don't have the same essence as 1 and 2.
Exactly, and because these are like little, side gameplay modes, they're never quite as polished, like they're not as fleshed out.
Right.
They're still fun sometimes, but not what you want. It's like, I always like to compare it to going to a restaurant. Imagine there's a restaurant in town that's called, like, I don't know, Steve's Burgers. And you go to Steve's Burgers, you sit down and you order the double deluxe burger off the menu. And then Steve comes over and puts a pizza in front of you. Now that could be a very good pizza, might even be the best pizza you've eaten. You might even love it.
It's not the double burger.
Exactly, you were expecting a burger and you got a pizza. It doesn't matter how good the pizza is, it's not what you were after.
Exactly. And it's still throwing things off because it's got the name on it, but it's not...
Yeah.
It doesn't have the soul of what essentially is a Spyro or a Crash game.
Exactly. They actually did that in particular with the most recent Crash Bandicoot game, which I admittedly didn't play because it wasn't something I was interested in. For some reason was some sort of like multiplayer arena battling game, which is just like, I guess props for trying something different, but it's not what I wanted out of a Crash Bandicoot title.
Felt a little too jarring.
Yeah. Like, who's this for?
So what color should we make the eye? Eyes, in this case. Just one of them.
I think we go for like a sort of magenta pink. Like, pink but leaning towards the red.
Oh, maybe something like that?
Yes, something like that. Perfect.
I'm thinking too. Okay, so hold on. I hope I'm appealing to the particular preference in question.
Oh no, this is good. This is very good. This is very good.
Totally not biased speaking.
Okay, I'm not a difficult robot to impress. Okay, I have very. I'm not gonna say I have very low standards. I'm just very easily satisfied.
I mean, hey, there's nothing wrong. I'm just poking fun.
You're perfectly valid.
Now, something else I have to mention too, I thought was really cool, because again, we're talking about like all the new stuff they introduce in games between titles. Another example of a fight that they introduced in 4, and it never showed up again, but it would be really cool if they did. It was basically it translates to blackout.
Okay.
And how it works is essentially when the fight begins, the lights go out, and you have no clue who's anywhere. The only way you know is when their turn comes up. because they'll illuminate on the battlefield.
Ah.
But then when they're done with their turn, the lights go off again. So you don't know where anyone's at any time, and you have to gauge relative to what you see between turns.
That's a really simple change, but I can definitely see how that like really changes up the dynamic of the fight.
Exactly, because now you can't just watch, okay, am I going to outrun my opponent or am I going to be cutting it close? No, you genuinely don't know until you get there. So you have to ballpark, okay, they're using a laser, which is usually on the slower side. I can probably sneak one turn in. Oh, surprise, they were closer to the line than you thought.
Does the targeting still work normally, though? There's no, like, accuracy penalties or anything?
Oh, it still does. Like, as far as I'm aware, it'll still tell you, you know, you're targeting bots 1, 2, or 3 relative to nature, but it just doesn't tell you where they're at.
Gotcha.
Okay, let me see.
So basically, from your Medabot's perspective, they can see properly, but you can't.
Correct. What should I do for the markings?
Hmm.
Should I go with a proper, like, red, or should I go with something a little more contrasting?
I'm thinking maybe we go for something a bit more like gold.
Gold works. I can see gold.
Yeah, can I go with a bit of gold trim?
Oh, I will put it back on. Something kind of like that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I will do that then. Cool. Actually, kind of looks like teeth to a point too.
See, I actually thought that was what you were going for, I'll be honest, which I think looks great.
Actually, it was entirely unintentional. I didn't even think about it.
No, you're meant to pretend. Ah, yes, that's what I meant all along, clearly.
Actually, reminds me of a friend of mine. He was talking to me about a Pokemon he traded in Go. The story itself was funny, and I hope he doesn't get mad at me for sharing this. But he said it was still hilarious. He said he traded an unknown L in Pokemon Go to this person, and it was just titled "Hold This." And the thing with Pokemon Go is if you trade something, they can't rename it. So whatever name you give it, it's stuck with that name. So he renamed an unknown L, he renamed it Hold This, and then traded it. So the joke he was going for was take the L. That's the joke he was going for, obviously. But the problem is the unknown decided it had other plans and turned lucky.
What does lucky mean in this context?
So basically, lucky in Pokemon Go means that it'll re-roll the IVs obviously, but they'll be higher than the regular re-roll. Like you're guaranteed to have at least 1 or 2 very high stats.
Ah, okay.
So basically, this went from a basic regular unknown L to a lucky unknown L. And he was expecting it just to be a meme of, listen, just take the L and deal with it. But apparently that unknown had other plans. So I said, let's take the L meme. Take the lucky, yeah. I mean, take the lucky. Great job. He's like, take the lucky. Got it. Are you sure? Yes, I got it. Now don't argue about it anymore, please.
There's something that people occasionally do that's a little bit like that with Yu-Gi-Oh! With like naming things funnily. There's not many, but there's a couple of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! That will require you to name a specific card for some reason. The most common one that you'll see is a card called Crossout Designator, where you name a card, banish it from your deck, and it negates all cards with that name for the rest of the turn. Okay. Basically, the idea being that if there's a card that you're both playing, you can use it to counter that card.
So basically, if I say something like Pot of Greed and then discard it, anyone that's playing Pot of Greed can't play it.
Yeah, so for the rest of that turn, Pot of Greed will resolve negate, so it doesn't do anything.
Okay.
And you can play this in response to something. So I would play Pot of Greed, you would chain Crossout Designator, naming Pot of Greed and banishing it from your deck, and that would make my Pot of Greed negate.
Okay.
Now, it doesn't happen tremendously often, but occasionally people have used this as a means of BMing the opponent, because there's a couple of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! That have got some pretty wacky names that become BM when you name them. I think my two favourites are You're in Danger, and the other one, which you see a bit more often, is literally called GG Easy. It's the card in question is from an archetype called Evil Twins, they're my favourite cards in the game. I'm going to be upfront. The flavour for them is that they are a pair of VTubers who, in real life, are actually phantom thieves. Fantastic theming.
Okay.
And a lot of their cards are like, a bit slightly memey, at least in graphics or naming. And yeah, one of the cards is literally called Evil Twin GG Easy.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, you don't even play this card normally. It's not even good in the deck it's meant to be, but it is a very funny thing you can name off of cross-out designator.
Let's be real. If a game offers a community to make a meme, they're gonna take the meme.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, there is a Yu-Gi-Oh content creator who has a series which is literally about his community playing cards in a way to tell the dumbest jokes you've ever seen. And some of them are like, how did you even realize you could do this? In one of the recent ones, they told the story of Icarus using Yu-Gi-Oh cards on the field. I'm not even exaggerating.
Gotta love it. Honestly,
it's pretty wonderful.
Honestly, it's kind of crazy with that effect, though. Like, there was a video I was watching, too. Have you... Well, first I have to ask, have you seen anything of Deltarune Chapters 3 and 4?
I know absolutely nothing about Deltarune apart from the Spamton songs.
Okay.
And that's it.
Valid.
I have told myself I am going to play them at some point, though, so
okay.
If it's verging into spoiler territory, I would ask...
Okay,
maybe we don't do this one.
I will forego on it then, but I will tell you, yes, absolutely, like, if Chapters 1 and 2... Like, Chapters 1 and 2 were kind of, like, just kind of setting the tone and just kind of retelling the story, because it takes place differently from Undertale, that's established. But the difference is they take... Chapter 2, for instance, is just extremely memey. It is the meme chapter.
Okay.
And it is hilarious for that reason. You're going to be rolling in your seat at like every single interaction. I will guarantee you that. But no, the reason why I suspect it probably took so long to release 3 and 4 is because Toby was cooking. Like me and a buddy of mine were talking about it. Compared to previous chapters, Toby was cooking so heavily in this, it's like he's story building like no one has in a very long time when it comes to games.
I mean, let's be fair as well, like, the man works damn hard. Like, he's been involved in Smash Bros, in Pokemon, like, I'm sure a lot of other games I've not even realized he's been in.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, dude's been, like, getting that bag.
Oh, absolutely. But it's worth it. Like it's worth the wait, and that's what makes it so amazing, is you go and play it, and then when you're done, you're basically just kind of laying back in your seat going, what did I just interact with?
So I do love when a game can leave you like that.
Right.
It's obviously a very different kind of game, but I remember having that sort of feeling with Persona 3 the first time I finished it.
So what are your thoughts on the new one that's coming out, on the topic of Persona?
You talking about the gacha game?
I guess so. I'm not into Persona so heavily. I just heard that there's a new title coming out. Like, I think it's
so they
Persona
released it on
X or
Steam.
something?
Yeah, so they released it on Steam this week, I believe. It's a gacha game. I'll be honest, I struggle with gacha games. I did my time in the Fate Grand Order gulag, and I spent far more on that game than I'm willing to admit publicly.
Okay. And
I enjoyed my time with it, but in hindsight, I didn't enjoy my time with it enough to justify the amount I spent on it.
I getcha.
What should we do? What's that?
What should we do with the cloth? Well, the cloth and the tail colors. I don't want to make the whole thing like a stark pink. That would feel kind of out of place and a little jarring.
Yeah. What about like a sort of pale violet?
I could do the tail in a violet. I could do that. What would I do with the cloth? Because the way I have it set up, and I can always change it if you have any other ideas, is it's like a cloth wrap around the base. Kind of like, and the pelvic fins are kind of supporting it. I'm thinking like a dark green or a blue, but the pink is a color I have to work around. Yeah,
I think a blue could work. Maybe something like just slightly desaturated, maybe.
So what about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that could be it.
Okay, it contrasts well. I just
Yeah,
don't want to make
I'd
like
say
a bunch
even-
of. I just don't want to make like a bunch of bright colors all together. That's all.
Yeah, I getcha. I'd say even maybe the mechanical joints that you've got like ever so slightly green, maybe make those a bit more neutral. Just more of a grey over than a green. It's purely a me thing, but something that Lady Helm kind of drilled into my head that I've never been able to shake is not to pair green and blue. I don't know why. I don't know where that opinion came from.
I think it's
But it's just one thing that I've never been able to shake.
I think it's mostly
Yeah.
color theory, because a lot of art classes as well, if you take the advances for like color theory, they teach you the basics and they kind of drill in quickly complementary colors, where there's only certain handfuls that can work really well together because they either blend well, they're not jarring. Warm and cold colors is a really great example of that, so like yellows, reds, and oranges are considered complementary.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of cold colors like blues and greens are considered cold. So I think it's mostly just color theory is my guess. So I can see where they're coming from with that.
Yeah.
I mostly just pick with the green because it's kind of like the usual color that they pick to go with the joint as like a kind of like a sleeve.
Right, I getcha.
Let me see. You said like a violet. Let's do.
Like a pale violet, I'm thinking. Yeah, something like that.
I don't want to match too close with the pink. That's why I want to be careful.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be a statement piece.
Could work. Or do you think it should be a little more, a little richer?
I'm thinking maybe slightly paler.
Or paler?
A little bit paler, yeah.
That stands out.
Yeah. I think it kind of goes with the sort of level of saturation we've got on the other parts as well.
Right, that's what I was trying to look. That's what I was trying to keep in mind. Let's see. But let's see. Okay, cool. Let's see where we at so far. About 2 hours in, we're making great progress.
She's looking good.
Now the
I would
other,
definitely use her.
the only other thing to keep in mind, and that's totally not bias talking, is it? Is the other actually no, I don't want to use that one. Is naming conventions. That's always the big trick. Is
Yes.
So the usual thing with names and naming conventions with Metarod is when you go to make the name in katakana, it needs to be 8 characters or fewer. So that also applies to part names.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I've always been really bad at naming things. Like, I have a lot of characters that have extremely mundane names because I literally named them by just looking up random census names.
I mean, that's a possibility. What I actually did a lot with character creation back in a lot of early days is, well, especially a lot of OC creation days too, is what you can do is if you look up, say, like, baby names, meaning, and then just put, like, a theme, that can give you a lot of ideas too, because more often than not, what they do is they'll give you names in different languages or what they mean in different languages. So, like, for instance, you might find, let me just think of a name. Let's say, for instance, if you're looking for a male OC that has a very strong character, like a very valiant character personality, you could think of something like, male or baby name, male baby names that mean or allude to valiant. And
Yeah.
you can find results, say, this name means valiant or victorious in English, but translates to virtuous in German, as an example.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I usually do with a lot of naming conventions, is I usually looked up names like that with a theme, and that usually narrowed my results down pretty heavily.
Funny enough, I did that exactly one time. Now, as you're saying, I kind of remembered this. I have a Japanese OC called Katsumi, and like I believe it translates roughly to something like winning beauty. And that was like the only time I did that, like looked up a name and what it meant, purely because I didn't want to be that person that just came up with a name that just sounded vaguely Japanese but wasn't actually Japanese because I didn't know what I was talking about.
Right, I get you. You want to make sure that you know what it is.
Yeah, I remember, we're going back some years now. I used to do a lot of forum-based role-playing. Gaia Online, God, those were the days. And I'll never forget, at one point, one of my friends pointed out in one of our groups someone, this was a Persona roleplay, so all the names were Japanese. But someone one of the characters in that group had a name that contained a syllable that does not exist in the Japanese language.
Huh.
So it wasn't just a made-up name, but it wouldn't even work in Japanese.
Well then.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was now, but it made me laugh at the time.
I imagine that was a fun interchange.
Yeah.
But yeah, see if maybe that could help some, next time you're working on character development. Look at my chat here. Drunk, I do appreciate you stopping in chat, buddy. Thanks for hanging out with us for just a little bit. Go have fun. I know you kind of are iffy about it, but go have fun anyway.
Iffy about having fun?
If you heard what he does, it's an on and off thing. But
okay, fair enough.
No, he's a great buddy of mine. We joke around with stuff like that all the time. It's work. No, he's got a point. Alright. I'm thinking about going gold with the trident too, or do you think that might be a little...
No, I think that would be perfect, actually. I think that would be an ideal use for it.
So what are your thoughts on gold trident, but like a brown kind of like leather braces?
I think that would work. Alternatively, I think the brown could work. Alternatively, we could double dip back into that blue color, but I could go either one.
Actually, you know what? That's a good point. We can do the blue instead. That's a lot better. Also, looking at this and contrasting with the white, with the skin-like elements, I really can't help but think of shiny Dratini.
Oh my god, you're right.
Tell me I'm wrong.
No, you're 100% correct. And now you've reminded me that Dragonite and Shiny Dragonite have nothing to do with the rest of their line, and I hate it.
Yeah, exactly. I've heard a lot of people complaining about that too. It's the same thing, for instance, as apparently Flygon and Salamence's names were mixed, were crossed, supposedly.
Yeah, I've heard that one before, yeah.
It was supposed to be, theoretically, it was supposed to be Bagon, Shelgon, Flygon. But then now it's been so long, people are like, oh yeah, Flygon is the Dragonfly type. It's the Dragonfly type one.
I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I know a lot of people really like Flygon. And I have no big problem with Flygon, I think he's fine. I actually think Vibrava, I actually way prefer that design though.
It's alright, I don't mind it.
I think it's because, Flygon has the same kind of very, for lack of a better word, doughy body type that Dragonite has, and I just don't think that body type looks particularly cool for, a legendary. Or pseudo-legendary, whatever they call them these days.
Yeah, I getcha.
Mythical? I don't know.
No,
I don't keep up with the terms.
It's considered a pseudo.
Okay, just pseudo, okay.
Most of the time, pseudos are typically dragon-based, but are 3-stage evos. So, as an example, Goodra is also considered a pseudo.
See, that's another one. I love Gumi. I don't care for the rest of its line, though.
Yeah, I really don't care much for Goodra either. I never really liked that line.
Gumi, though, is fantastic. There will be no slander against Gumi.
Gumi's nice. Gumi is the small. There's actually one I really wish would have gotten a little bit more love too. It's brain, work with me. There's a ton of different ones I really wish got more love, but I know my boys are the really big ones. Obviously, Gauntlet and Baltoy as well, especially for their baby stages. But Aegislash is also another really big one that I enjoy.
I like Aegislash, although I personally prefer, I don't think it's a bad design by any stretch. I personally prefer Doublade and... Oh god, what's the first one called? Okay, thank you, yes. I actually have the plushies of Honedge and Doublade. Got them when we went to Japan last year. One of my favourite things when it comes to Pokemon plushies is plushies of Pokemon that probably should not be made into plushies. I don't know why, I just think it's really funny.
Right, because they either look really wonky, or they're just very jarring because you're not expecting it to be soft.
Yeah. I've got a Metagross plush, and it's this is the least, cuddly Pokemon I can imagine, and it's hilarious.
Yeah. Just in my case, too, I got a bunch of the Sitting Cuties, too, that I've collected over the years, too.
Yeah, that's the ones.
one of the ones that I have is actually my car. He's actually my driving buddy in my car. Is a Torterra.
Oh, nice, nice. I like
Torterra
Torterra a lot. actually.
Torterra is the best grass starter. You can't tell me otherwise. But anyway,
Ooh, I don't know. Bulbasaur might have something to say about that.
I mean, I'll make an exception for Bulbasaur. The tree frog is nice. I will give love to.
Tell you what, I'll meet you in the middle. Bulbasaur clears Turtwig, but Torterra clears Venusaur.
Yeah, I could see that because technically,
Don't get me wrong, I like Turtwig. I think Turtwig is great.
It would have advantage over because it's ground.
I mean, true. I was just talking in the cuteness factor, but yeah, you are right.
No, but honestly, I just like the idea of just this walking float. There's just this little walking island.
Yeah. I remember, you've probably seen this guy's videos, I can't remember his name. There's this guy who hit my shorts a while back where he does like a little analysis of every Pokemon design, like little 1-2 minute videos. You've probably seen him, I can't think of his name.
I think it might be Lockstin Noggin. He's like the only PokeTuber.
It's not those, just like, I know Lockstin, it's not him.
Okay,
I can't think of this guy's name. Doesn't matter either way.
In that case,
but he brings up
yeah, in that case,
what I think is that the only big criticism of Torterra, which it's not about the design, it's the size. Torterra should be bigger.
Oh, absolutely. It absolutely should be bigger. It's literally a walking island. It doesn't need to be just a single tree.
Yeah.
It absolutely needs to be bigger. I 100% agree. But yeah, my little Torterra buddy, I named him Genbu, and he just follows. He's just my little car buddy. He's been my car buddy since I got my car. Well, same year actually. But the thing is, obviously, you know, things that are in the sun for forever, they start to fade, and it's kind of neat though in the case of my little Genbu because he's got this really neat little fade where obviously the parts that have been in the sun are really faded colors, but his underbelly is still like that fresh color, like he was just like he was just woven. And the cool thing is the tree, because of the way it was sitting pressed against the window, and some pieces were protected more so from the sun. There's pieces of this tree that have this really cool blend between like a turquoise to the bright green that you know, when he was freshly sown.
How neat!
It's like this really neat little really cool little blend, and I looked at this and someone said, "Hey, look, a shiny Torterra." I'm like, honestly, I'd take that as a shiny Torterra because I really don't like shiny Torterra. It's not that impressive, not to me anyway.
It really is a shame how some shinies are like the literal coolest thing ever, and some of them you have to have it pointed out to you that they're even shiny in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, personally, like, if you want to know a shiny that's really cool, and I think this one just goes without saying, is Golurk. It's quite literally the Iron Giant.
I'm gonna have to remind myself. I haven't looked at Golurk in a while.
So Golurk is basically like a two-tone aquamarine, but then his shiny is like a two-tone gray with green glowing instead of yellow.
Oh yes.
So he literally becomes the Iron Giant.
If you know what, they could have messed this one up, and they definitely didn't. The decision to change the glowy bits to like lime green is what makes it shiny gray. Like if it was just the gray, it would have been okay, but not wonderful. But the different glowy bits is fantastic.
It was a whole palette swap.
Yeah. I'm not at all biased here. Magnemite does have a fantastic shiny though.
Oh no, 100%. I really like that sepia look they gave him.
Yeah. Magnemite actually is the only Pokemon that I ever went out of my way to get a shiny for. I did the Masuda method in Scarlet and Violet, and I forget how many eggs it took me, but I just remember it was significantly over odds, like not even close to being on odds.
Let me check something real quick. I'm going to take a brief intermission here while I'm checking my music, make sure that doesn't die out on me. Hold on. Yes, please, keep going. Let me see. What I might have to do is, if I still have it, I think I might still have a shiny Magnemite at home I could give you.
Oh, that's okay. I'll be honest. I don't even have Nintendo Switch Online anymore. I haven't played it in years.
No, it's always worth checking though.
Yeah.
Plus, I need to give my shoulders a break anyway while I'm getting this over.
That's fair. Yeah, I did eventually get him in the end, but it took me far longer than I liked to admit.
to someone else. Oh well. It was worth a shot to look though. There's
Yeah,
a lot of
it's all good.
legendaries in here I forgot all about though. Okay.
I mean, I have like terrible luck when it comes to like Pokemon. I have never encountered ever a wild shiny ever. Like I know some people who've had like one or two. Some people have like more than that. I've never found one just randomly.
Honestly, I kind of like the colors after I'm able to put it all together.
I think she looks great.
Still gotta figure out a naming convention.
Hmm.
I wonder something. Yeah, I'm gonna pull up Depot real quick and do some searches on my own while I let this sit.
You said it has to be how many characters?
When translated, it needs to be 8 characters or fewer in katakana. What about,
I was thinking maybe like Abyss Siren.
I was actually just thinking of the term Melusine. Because looking at it briefly, it is a female spirit of fresh water in a holy well or river, based out of European folklore.
It's funny as well because I'm so Yu-Gi-Oh pilled. There is a Yu-Gi-Oh monster that is a mermaid called Melusine.
It also translates into 6 characters by itself.
We could go with that.
Well, it could also crunch it down to 5.
See, in my mind, and again, you obviously are far more. I will defer to your judgment on this regard, but in my mind, when I think of Metabot names, I think of them being true words, but I don't know if that's a frequent thing or not.
So the thing with, and this kind of ties back into Japanese and its 3 alphabets, hiragana, katakana, and kanji, is katakana is mostly used for a lot of words that don't have a conventional naming or verbiage. So a lot of part names, because they sometimes are referring to a theme or an object on its own without context, they're sometimes considered foreign words.
Yeah, so I mean, if we wanted to go Abyss Siren, that would be this, which is 7, which would fit. Abyssu Siren.
Let me see. 4. Okay, I'm getting. Put that in here and see what that looks like. Hold on. Okay, yeah, it's just a different they just use a different character, and that's what's throwing me off. The other one I was thinking of immediately is Melusine Song.
Would that fit?
I had it on here originally.
I guess it would fit, actually, yeah.
Yeah, here's essentially what I've got for it. Look at that again. That's what I'm thinking of.
We can go with that. I mean, you definitely know the naming conventions better than I do. So, and I've already said I'm bad at naming.
I'm just trying to kind of tie in a lot of themes too, because you really like the idea of going with like a siren.
Yeah.
And sirens are typically also known for their alluring voice. But the other catch too is we've also seen a lot of sea dragons, we've seen mermaids. The other thing as well, Siren specifically actually does have a designated theming already. We actually have we have 2 dedicated Siren types already, but they're Siren in the case of the winged versions, not the sea-based versions.
Ah, okay, right, yeah, I'm with you.
So that's what I was trying to think about when you said Siren. I'm like, let's play around with this so we can kind of do like a sea monster type without encroaching on someone else's territory.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I wasn't aware. It's really weird how just mythologically, we somehow invented two monsters that are called sirens, and they're just completely different to each other. Like, one's a bird and one's a fish.
Oh yeah, definitely. But they both have somehow the same kind of power, or close to.
Yeah.
What I'll do... Now that we have that down... Ow. Let me reposition myself here, there we go. My foot was falling asleep under me. Okay, so let's work on some of the extra colors here. I want...
See, this is the sort of stuff I always really struggle with. Like, I know it's like comparatively quite a simple amount of strokes, but like the effect you get on the eye there is so good. I'm so bad at like shading.
That's what I was looking for. Better.
I used to actually do art with my friend Yomi, where because I'm so bad at shading, I'd do the line art and the flats and send it over to her, and then she would do all the shading because she just made it look way better than I ever could.
I think doing an Orimeda with Yomi would be pretty cool. I've just not had the guts to reach out since they always look so busy with stuff. Plus, with Offkai going on, I think that's kept a lot of people busy.
Yeah, well, she's all back now, so. Like
I said, it's one of those cases where like it'd be neat to happen, but I don't know. I just haven't.
I getcha.
The other actually, here's a really cool trick you could do for shading too. This is what I do for all my stuff, and I learned this from a friend of mine, passive. Like, huh, that's a really neat way to do it. Is after you do your flat coat, add 2 more layers, one for light, one for dark, and make them like between 20 and 30%, just so you can see what you're doing. But then when you're done, cut them down to like 10%. Is do a transparent layer like this. Check my music real quick, make sure it's. Okay. Is use solid white and solid black, and then just color like you would normally.
I getcha, yeah, that makes sense.
And that's what I've always done with my shading, because it saves the work of having to, you know, like color match and figure out what works and what doesn't, because it's gonna basically solve itself once I turn the transparency down, or
right.
rather. Well, that's just what I do anyway. Now, obviously, there's far better ways to do it, or if you want to get like really in depth with the blending, you can do that. You can do different things, but
oh yeah. I haven't done much art for a little while. I got a tablet this year, and I started using it a little bit. It's taking a bit of getting used to, but just I haven't had much time to do as much art as I'd like. Also, the heat has kind of, you know, sapped a lot of the will in that regard.
This heat wave that everything's been getting has just been absolutely obscene.
Yeah.
There's really no reason that it has to be this hot or this humid anywhere. But for some reason, it is.
Alright, when we're down here tonight, I'm probably just gonna park myself directly in front of the air conditioner for a few minutes.
Luckily, though, usually when I get to this point, this is kind of like the point where things start kind of evening out, where I'm kind of on the tail end of almost being finished.
No, I think she looks fantastic.
Yeah, it's coming together really nice.
You know what?
Even with a very strange kit like when it brings, it makes it work.
I've just got my finger on it. The design was reminding me of something, and I couldn't put my finger on what, and I've just found it. Have you ever played Mega Man Star Force?
I know exactly who you're talking about immediately. Yes, I did play that game.
Yeah, it only just now clicked with me, but it reminds me of the snake removed from that.
Was it Queen Ophiuchus or something?
That's the one. That was the one. Yeah.
You know, the naming conventions on that one were kind of funky too. Had a lot of bangers.
Okay games. Oh yeah, the designs are pretty good. I don't I don't think I like them as much as the Battle Network series on the whole, but I
Oh,
understand
100%.
they had to try something different, and I respect what they were going for,
Oh,
even being
100%.
quite land as well.
Honestly, I'm personally more of Team Number Man. I've had to pick something from Network Transmission.
Battle Man's very good.
It'd be either Number Man or Tomahawk Man.
From Battle Network, I'm a big fan of. I like Search Man a lot. I
Search
like
Man's a good
Toad
one.
Man. He's very cute. I feel like I'm missing an obvious one, but I can't seem to put my finger on it.
Nightman's pretty cool too.
I like what they were going for with Nightman, because as someone whose power fantasy is being the tank that takes no damage and you can't do anything to them, I respect that they really went all in on that.
He's really
I
weird
wish he
to use,
wasn't
though.
just a statue, though.
I actually didn't mind his design, but the problem is his attacks really were kind of iffy too, because he was very heavy on the emphasis of purposely surrounding yourself on purpose, which puts you at disadvantage in at least in 5, because his charge attack just had minimal range.
Oh, right, I completely forgot that he was playable. I've never actually
It was that really neat little ball and chain trick he had, which was really cool looking, but like I said, its range was just so bad.
I've actually never got around to playing that one. When it comes to Battle Network, I've played... let me see, I've played all the way through 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I've never actually touched 5 or 6.
So
I should do, I've got them. I bought the collection, I've just never got around to playing them.
Yeah, the neat thing about if I can figure this out, hold on. I'm gonna map my light track here, hold on.
Oh yeah, I get you. Yeah, again, the tail. Bit of a pain.
I'm just trying to map it with my light source. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, 5 had this really big mechanic in it where you were basically trying to liberate sections of the net from the dark force, and its biggest mechanic was when you were going to liberate panels, you had a significant terrain advantage or disadvantage relative to how many panels around it belonged to you versus your enemy. So, like, if it was only one panel and everything else around you was completely lit up, then obviously there was, like, only one row of enemy panels because they have no support. Inversely, if you walk straight into an enemy panel and it's completely surrounding you on all sides except the side you walked in on, then you're literally surrounded on both sides.
Oh, huh.
So a lot of navies that you worked with in 5 kind of played around with that and complemented it. Like, for instance, Nightman, like I said, his signature move was a circle ball and chain that moved in a circle in the 8 spaces directly around him specifically. So it was actually a very strong skill. But the problem is its range, like I said, was just abysmal.
Yeah.
Because if you're fighting on, say, advantage terrain where they only have three panels, you literally have to be sitting on the center panel and you're only hitting 3 of them.
I getcha, yeah.
So it made things really weird. That's the only way.
I've heard someone talking about like that liberation mission mechanic before, and how the different navies you get to play with are definitely very much not made equal. If I remember correctly, I think it was
Correct.
Gyro Man was like crazy bastardly good.
He was, and his counterpart in the other version was Shadow Man. And their big gimmicks were that they could walk or move freely on shadow panels without having to liberate them. So if you had to find a specific item panel in the corner because no one else could get to it, and you'd spend 8 turns working that direction, which would ruin your rank, you could use Shadow Man or Gyro Man to just fly over there, liberate the panel, and then just have them come back.
Right. Yeah, I can see that'd be pretty good.
Personally, like I said, I was more a fan of Number Man or Tomahawk Man, and I think they were both separate versions, which sucked. But Tomahawk Man was great because his specialty was just, yeah, the 2 rows of 3 in front of you, whack, they're gone.
It's funny, the last time I played a Mega Man Battle Network game was, I think it was 2 on stream. And I don't know what what it is. I've never really vibed with the sword weapons in that game. I don't know. I just, as someone, again, I value consistency, and it's always a lot easier to shoot someone than to hit them with a sword, you know, just because that's how range works.
Right.
And it always really irked me. Yeah. But it always really irked me in that game how there's a couple of dungeons where you encounter what I would consider the worst enemy in the franchise, which is the shadow enemies that you can only kill with swords.
Oh, yeah.
Just, yeah. I hate them so much. It's like, hey, here's a really cool battle system where you can customize the deck however you like to suit your playstyle, except also this enemy requires this specific type of chip, otherwise screw you.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. Thanks.
Yeah. And if you're not built with it or you didn't include it in the deck, well, guess who's getting a bad rank?
Yeah. Well, no, you can't even kill them. You have to leave. You have to flee. You literally can't damage them. One of the complaints that I used to have with Final Fantasy III specifically, that game has a job system, which sounds really cool. That's, you know, I like job systems in games. I think they're really fun.
Uh-huh.
The problem is that there's a few dungeons in that game that basically, they don't exactly specifically tell you, but you pretty much need to use a very specific job, otherwise you are just not going to clear the dungeon. Like, in this dungeon, every enemy will clone itself when it takes damage unless you use a Dark Knight.
Right.
Well, I guess I'm using Dark Knights then.
Yeah. That's kind of, I kind of had that conversation with a friend of mine too with Honkai Star Rail, because personally, I've loved it since I started playing because it scratches that RPG itch I've been looking for years. That, the fact of space trains. Like, the second I saw the trailer for the Astral Express, I'm like, sold. Where do I download? Like, you didn't even have to convince me. Like, I was already looking for the download link when I found it. But the neat thing about it, and I think it's mostly just a matter of opinion, is I personally like the way the game is teaching you different types of team builds, because they try to emphasize it relative to the story and the world that you're traveling in. So, like, for instance, in Penacony, which is the fourth world that you explore for the story mode, which is a very pretty place, by the way. It's a beautiful area. It's like that nice little mix of having like 30s, like the Roaring 30s vibe, but it's also got this really trippy Alice in Wonderland theme.
I do like an Alice in Wonderland theme.
It's really, really cool. But the big thing that they were trying to teach you with there, as far as team builds, is a team style called Super Break. And to explain the way some of the game mechanics work briefly, breaking or toughness, the games has a mechanic around toughness gauges, which is basically, if you can break the enemy's toughness gauge, you not only stagger them, but deal a burst damage upon breaking their toughness gauge. And doing so also allows you to deal more damage as long as you can keep the weakness broken. Super Break was a new mechanic they introduced in Penacony, which allows you to deal even more tremendous punish damage to enemies that are weakness broken, with instances of burst damage. And they introduced a lot of characters that emphasize Super Break. And again, it's either a mechanic you love or you hate, but basically the way that the way they teach in Star Rail is the final boss for each world, for each story arc. They kind of mandate you to use a very specific team member or story-based member or as an ally, because they're trying to teach you a mechanic. So in the case of Penacony, they're teaching you Super Break. So one of your required allies was somebody that could offer you the Super Break buff.
Okay.
And then after that, if you decided you didn't like it, well, at least the game taught you how it works. And then you can decide from there if you want to build a Super Break team. Excuse me. But another example, they taught you how to make an erudition team, which is damaging a lot of people at once, and how to capitalize on that. Teaching you hunt teams, teaching you follow-up. But yeah, this is what I mean, by the way, with the lighting. I just turned it down to like 10.
I see, yeah.
Yeah, and it's literally just a solid white. Like, if I turn this all the way up, it's just solid white. So, something you can try the next time. That's all.
Yeah.
But that's what I've been doing with my shading for years. But like I said, it's mostly just something that I prefer, that I enjoy, because I kind of like being able to mix things up and learn different possibilities.
That was what used to hook me into Fate Grand Order for the longest time. Like, I have a lot of problems with Fate Grand Order, just in terms of design.
I've heard
like
a lot of
story is structured and such.
I've heard a lot of on and off about FGO, especially with its rates.
The rates, okay, so the actual gacha is awful. Like, before I stopped playing, that game didn't even have a pity system. It does have one now, but it's like terrible.
Ouch.
But yeah, the actual battle system is very interesting and very, very fun to engage with. It's another one of those games, unfortunately, where I think the game would be significantly more fun if it wasn't a gacha game and you just earned more characters by playing the game.
Right.
Which, to be fair, that's kind of my stance on every gacha game these days, frankly.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually kind of funny.
The thing that eventually put me off of... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, the thing that eventually put me off of Fate Grand Order was I had this realization when it came to their storytelling that instead of doing a lot of storytelling or world building, the game would frequently just throw proper nouns at you, act like they mean something, and then proceed to not explain them. Yeah. Like, there is... I mean, I've had this explained to me multiple times. There's something in that setting in the story called, like, the Zero Sale. I was playing the game when they introduced that. I have had it explained to me multiple times. I don't think I've ever had true consistent explanations that tell me the same thing about what it is supposed to actually do. It's the magical equivalent of technobabble.
I've heard the Fate series as well is just notorious for that kind of thing. Like, I asked a friend of mine years ago when I wanted to look into watching Fate to kind of like see what the big hubbub was about, and I asked, there's like a ton of different ones here, what exactly is the order? And he's like, yes. And then
that's kind of fair.
And he's like, honestly, there isn't even a watch order. The best way he said he could describe it is literally just a visual novel. I think he said you start in Unlimited Blade Works, and then basically you start in Fate Stay Night, he said. And then from there you basically pick which one you want to watch, because they're like alternative endings to a visual novel.
And then you've also got ones that are like side stories and sequels and prequels and
that's the best way that he said he was able to explain it to me. And he said even then that's the worst example he could give. But I'm like, you know what, that's fair. And I still have yet to get in the series. I'd like to look into it, I just haven't had the chance.
I will second your friend's opinion that the best way to start the series is just to watch the original Fate Stay Night, and that will give you a decent idea if it's something you'll be into or not.
Right.
I haven't watched it in years, I have no idea how well it holds up, but I remember enjoying it when I watched it originally.
Yeah, it's one of those ones I need to get into, but my to-watch list is also like 8 miles long with things I've
that's very relatable.
What I really need to do is get back into finishing off Danmachi season 5, I believe? Yeah, 5. Because I started and got midway through, and the plot was just really pissing me off. Like, not in a bad way. Like, it was just one of those, like, how are you letting them get away with this kind of thing? Like, those moments where if you could scream to the character, you would. And it's basically been portraying one of the characters specifically in the manner, like, it's one of those ones where, like, if you didn't like them already, for whatever reason, this gives you every reason to want to start an angry mob and go start lynching things. Like, I kid you not. Like, I told a friend about a friend of mine he like follows it, but he doesn't like watch it actively about what's going on. And yeah, he shared my opinion very eagerly. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on there I really do need to finish up and watch. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah.
I just don't have time.
I've been trying to justify my Crunchyroll subscription lately by every season I look for something that I've not heard of and watch it. And that's led me to find some pretty interesting things recently. I just finished watching Apocalypse Hotel, which is a very fun little watch. It's about a hotel after humanity leaves Earth because a virus would have wiped them out. The hotel is staffed by robots, and they're continuing to keep it running, waiting for humanity to come back.
Which would likely not be the case, but...
Well, I'm not going to say anything, but I will say it's a very fun show, and it's surprisingly more comical than I thought it would actually be. Like, I kind of went into it having never heard of it and thinking, this sounds like it might be a bit kind of existential, maybe, I don't know. But it's actually quite funny. It's actually quite good.
I gotcha.
Also, the main character is a cute robot girl, so that's good. And there's also a handsome doorman robot, so also very good.
I mean, hey, it's got to appeal to the masses somehow.
Exactly.
Alright, I think that should do it for the code. What do you think?
I think she looks great. I think that was fantastic. She looks like she would be right at home next to... I can't remember the name of this one now. You showed me this one, the pink-haired succubus one.
Oh, Lily Mare.
Yes. They look like they would be right at home next to each other. In a big way.
I can see it. I can see it. Now what I can do... Now, what I can do... Here, I'm going to put my tablet to the side for just a minute. Into this Kuura. Alright, so what should the model ID be on this one? That's the big trick. Because we like the name Melusine Song.
Would MSS be valid? I mean, again, I'm not as well versed with the naming convention, so...
Typically, it's like 3 letters that designate the name.
Yeah.
MSS could work. You'd also do MLS.
MLS works, yeah.
I don't think anyone's got MLS, though. Let me look. I'll consult one of the JP wikis. Hold on. There's one wiki I hold on to that actually has archived a document of like every single of the older games. Apparently, I actually do some
nice.
stuff from S2. So I can check here. Okay, both of those are unavailable. Or no, I'm sorry, they are available.
Unavailable.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
So let's do MLS. Melusine Song. Oops, no. Oh, right there. Thank you. Okay, so I do need to shrink this down just a hair. Right there. Alright. So the part names are going to be rather interesting, though. However, given that the Melusine, looking at it again, is... It says it's got derivatives in French, primarily, but generally is an English folklore, portrayed as a Lamia or a mermaid. What should we do for names? You wouldn't happen to be proficient in French, would you?
No, I did.
It was worth a shot.
3 years of French and immediately forgot all of it.
Worth a shot. I was thinking we could do something.
I know a little bit of German. I can do some German if that's any good for you.
Unfortunately, that one won't fit this one. All right, let me think.
Yeah.
Let's keep looking. Let me see. A figure of European folklore, a female spirit of fresh water or in a holy well or river, usually depicted as a woman who is a serpent or fish from the waist down. Sometimes depicted with wings, two tails, or both. Apparently it said they've also been the cultivator for what later became the Nereids, or water nymphs, or mermaids in general. Let's try...
I'm thinking for the head, like, maybe... Yeah, we've got song in the name. Maybe, like, incorporating, like, a type of song, like dirge or something. Something dirge, maybe.
Let me try something real quick. Hold on. Put this over. Go from French. What if we do... We could translate from English to French, and then use French names.
English to French and then to Japanese, let's go.
I mean, they've done it before. Like, for instance...
I mean, why not? Yeah.
Yeah, like, for instance, Maquette, or the mysterious KWG type with no counterpart, his part names are French.
Ah.
However, they literally translate to, is this head, is this arm, is this hand, is this leg. That's literally what they translate to.
Is this a pigeon?
Well, it's funny because for one of my concepts, Bozzetto, I did the same thing, but I did it with Italian.
Alright.
Actually, we'll pull that up real quick. Hold on. Because I like sharing Bozzetto. It was a fun design I put together, and I'm hoping to punch him in for the next contest. Where are you? It's, this one. Yeah, it's this one. There we go.
Oh, yes, you have shown me this guy. Yeah.
Yeah, but the part names are Italian. But they do the same thing. Is this head? Is this arm? Is this hand? Is this leg? And the headcanon I came up with this one was, after finding out what happened to Maquette in the French branch, the Italian branch decided, hey, you know what would be funny? So they designed one and gave it the personality of a yellow jacket. It's just, looks at you funny. It's on sight. So what I'm thinking of, just has some ideas. I started with an idea for the head of, like, Sweet Song. And then when I translate it to French, and I might botch this, it's Chanson douce. Or Chant d'eau, as it's called. Or we could just do regular EN names, that works too.
Yeah, I think we'll stick with some English ones, just because it rolls off the tongue a little easier.
It was worth a shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. Sweet Song, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oops.
See, I think we want to go for something that kind of, like, alludes to the idea of her being a bit more sinister.
Okay. That's what I'm thinking, is, I'm thinking, like, Gorgon Hand.
That could work for the arm.
So let's do... Hold on.
So you said that the scrape skill is one that does more damage based on the number of buffs they've got, right?
Basically, it applies the effect clear state to an attack. And how effect clear works is when attacking the opponent, it'll check to see how many positive buffs it has for a maximum of 4. For every buff it finds, it deals additional damage, and then it removes the buffs.
Right, okay.
So, my thoughts was with Sweet Song, it's like a disarming effect.
See, I was thinking, what if we take it in, like, a different angle, and instead make it something like Jealousy Dirge? Like, she's jealous that you've got all these effects. And, like, a dirge being, like, a funeral song. But this is very much a not nice.
How about Sweet Envy?
Ooh, I like that. Yes.
We'll do Sweet Envy. Gorgon Hand is 8 characters, we can do that. What should we do for Trident?
Oh, you know what? Instead of Gorgon Hand, just for a bit of alliteration, what about Gorgon Grasp?
Let me check. Because the biggest check is if they actually if they translate under characters.
Yeah, I think it should. Gorgon Grasp.
It does. We're good.
Yeah.
I don't want to just say trident either because we gotta make it kind of.
Yeah, we can do better than that.
I'm thinking for the legs, we could also do something like River Tail, kind of alluding to the origin of the Melusine.
We can go with that.
Then we just need the trident. Man, I'm drawing a blank with this one.
Yeah. I feel like there's something clever, I'm just not finding it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to
I feel like there has to be something good we can do with this, and it's not quite settling on it. I have a name, but I don't think it's a good one.
What would that be?
Okay. You're going to need to stick with me a little bit on this.
Alright, I'm humoring you.
Okay. There is a card in Yu-Gi-Oh! Of course it's Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm sorry, everything is secretly Yu-Gi-Oh! With me. Called Raigeki in English. That's the English name for it.
Okay.
And Raigeki is, I believe, basically just translates to like Thunderbolt or something. And I'm just thinking, try Geki. I told you it was bad.
No, I can see where you're coming from with it, though.
Wait a second.
You could also do Rajan Staff.
I think Raijin stuff, because Raijin's like a very specific guy, isn't he, in folklore? I think Raijin is like a specific
Raiju.
Japanese entity.
Thunder animal, legendary creature associated with lightning thunder. But Raiju in general also can allude to just embodiment of lightning in an animal. Yeah, this one also says it's just the embodiment of lightning in an animal form. Coming from a wiki dedicated specifically to yokai.
We could just like add a like an adjective to trident, like spark trident or something like that.
I was thinking that. I was also thinking stun staff. No, I like yours better. Spark trident.
Spark trident. I think that will fit.
Let me see. 4, 5, 6. No, it's 9 characters or 10 characters.
Oh yeah, trident's like a lot. Wow, trident is like 6 on its own.
We could do Tri-Spark.
Tri-Spark could work.
We'll do that then.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Move this over then. And here. Alright, so we have Sweet Envy, which was Scrape. Now the thing we also have to identify are which parts are going to be heavy. Because we have 2 to work with, and they don't always have to be the arms.
Can the legs themselves be heavy?
No, legs cannot. The legs have to support the weight.
Right, but so they can't be heavy themselves.
Yes. I've seen a lot of things do like a head and arm. Or what we could do, and it's really rare, it doesn't always happen, but it happens every once in a while, is they only apply like one heavy part and they just leave an empty slot.
I could see that, honestly. I'm thinking maybe we go for the Gorgon glass as the heavy part. And have like that extra allowance of one.
We have river tail. Two. What do we have on here? Emergency. Alright, so we'll do. Did you say Gorgon Grasp?
Yeah, I think Gorgon glass.
Tablet back over. So I don't need this anymore. So now I can get rid of this. Usually what I like doing as a tail end is just concept sketches. So stuff that would look what it would look like from different angles.
Sure.
So that's the fun part I get to do. So let's see. I think that for the most part its body shape is fairly self-explanatory. So the only thing that we really have to pay attention to is maybe I could do an emphasis on the hand, because this hand is not like the other. And then of course, the dorsal spine on the back of the tail.
Sounds good.
I'm thinking. So now that's kind of tying back to some other discussion we were having. Now that your internet problem's officially back up and fixed for now, what's the big plan for getting stuff back on the books?
Honestly, it's going to be a case of just trying to get back to business as usual. We did kind of leave off midway through Final Fantasy IX, where like we finished on disc 9, on disc 9, hello, on disc 3, like right at the end of disc 3, and or what would be disc 3, because obviously we're playing the Steam version. So we're like near the tail end of it, and I've never finished that one before, so that'll be definitely like one of the first things we get back to.
Okay.
I've also kind of indulged in the Steam sale, so I'll probably be digging through a few of my impulse buys there.
I mean, that's a good possibility. There's lots. The Steam Summer Sale always does a lot of great stuff. Like, you don't even have to.
Oh yeah.
You never have to worry about not getting a good deal at the Steam sale. Like, they put so much emphasis on making sure stuff is like given away in some cases.
Yeah, it's such a good deal. Like, I'll be honest, I don't really buy many new games these days. I can't remember the last time I bought a new title for like full price. I usually just like wait a little bit and get it on a sale.
One that actually I've been hooked on that my brother bought me the other day is Fantasy Life, The Girl Who Steals Time.
Oh, you know what? You know what? That was one that I did buy at full price. You know what? Yeah, that's fair.
It's worth it. I normally am
I've been hooked
those
on that.
games, but I can definitely see what all the hype is about. It's been very enjoyable.
It's funny because I'm actually my friends always know this about me. I am not a fan of the genre of open world survival crafty games, which seem to be everywhere.
Yeah.
And in theory, minus the survival part, like in theory, Fantasy Life is open world crafty game, but
it doesn't behave.
I don't. Yeah, like the crafting in that game is fun. For this, like I actually don't unlock the skills that allow you to skip crafting because I like doing the crafting minigame. I think it's fun.
Oh yeah, it is.
And it's weird because in other games they'll have like craft everything, you know, craft your weapon, your armor, your gear, and it's like I get it, but the act of crafting is not fun. I actually had a big talk about this with a friend recently, how I really hate the influence that Minecraft has had on the industry insofar as convincing so many games that they need a crafting system when they don't. I hate when I'm playing a game, I open a chest, and rather than finding like a cool weapon or some money, I just find like, or even worse, like 5 scribble pelts or something. It's like, oh boy, I can eventually use this to make something that might be helpful eventually. Like, it's not more immersive, it's just busy work and I hate it. But in Fantasy Life, the crafting is inherently fun in and of itself, so I don't mind.
Yeah. It's not bad, honestly. It actually keeps you very well engaged and interactive because it's timed. You can't just like sit there and watch it. You actually have to be engaged.
It's funny actually because I'm a big fan. I used to be much more of a fan. I have over 10,000 hours in Final Fantasy XIV, and that game also has a fairly deep crafting and gathering system. But it's just not fun. Like, the crafting in that game is a solved system. You don't need to think. There's no mechanical skill. It's purely just a stat check. And if you have the stats, you can just put in a macro... Sorry? What did you say?
I said, cool, it's made.
Yeah, it's just like... it happens every time with 100% consistency. And it makes it really hard to enjoy it. Like, I like the idea of being, self-sufficient, make your own stuff. That's very cool in theory. In practice, though, it just becomes another form of busy work.
Now, that's actually something I did kind of like about Fantasy Life, though, because it gives you the option to either auto-build or you can do the minigame. But what I noticed is, if you're crafting a weapon and you auto-craft, it doesn't get you don't get a bonus stat with it.
Yeah, you just get the best, the average result, the baseline result.
Correct. And I'm like,
so it's good for like if you just need a few materials, but
right. It's great for materials, but if you want to do weapons or armors, you're better off. It actually incentivizes you to do the mini game.
How far have you got in the game?
I just navigated to the faraway island.
Okay.
So,
are you doing the thing where you're trying to do like everything you can before you move on, or?
Actually, something on that actually, I really do appreciate that when you get to a point where they're like, hey, you're not going to be able to come back here for a while if you proceed. Do you want to? It actually gives you the it gives you the warning. I appreciate that so much. Because more often than not, one of the biggest paranoia in games is, if I leave, am I able to come back?
Yeah. Missables. I hate them. Funnily enough, fantastic series that's unfortunately dead now, Golden Sun. The first 2 games in that franchise were perfect in that regard. There were no missables that you couldn't go back to get. So like Golden Sun 1, even at the very end of the game, you could go all the way back to the start and find a thing that you missed. Golden Sun 2, same thing. The only caveat there is that because you could kind of carry over your save data between the 2 games, if you missed it in Golden Sun 1, carried over your data to 2, you still lost it there. But at that point, that's fair enough. It's a completely different game.
Yeah, at that point,
Sun...
At that point, there's a reason. If you missed it, we tried. We gave you the opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. But the third game, Dark Dawn, which had a lot of issues, it broke that. I don't know if there's more than one, but there is definitely at least one moment in that game where you can miss something important permanently. And that, I actually missed it when I was going through it. Didn't realize until I was reading a walkthrough after I got stuck on a bit, and that single-handedly killed my enjoyment of the game. I put it down, didn't bother finishing it.
Yep.
Honestly, I'm like, well, what's the point?
That's actually one thing that I really wish, and I hope if they ever go back, if Level 5 ever goes back to remaster or make a Dark Cloud 3, is with Dark Cloud 2. Like, the game itself is timeless. Well, pun intended, timeless. But I highly recommend playing it at least once if you've not, because it's just that amazing. Its soundtrack is stellar. It also helps, too, that soundtrack, I didn't learn this until much later, was done by Tomohiro Nishiura, who was best known later on for their role in the Xenoblade series.
Oh, okay.
So its soundtrack was already off to a fantastic start. The EN dub also had an all-star cast. For instance, Mark Hamill was the voice of the main antagonist, and the guy that did Robin in Teen Titans, the name escapes me at the moment, is the main male character.
Oh man.
So it had a lot of amazing voice actors that were part of that game. The biggest problem with the game that it had is the fact that it has a photography system that is tied to the world's georama, which is essentially the world-building mechanic in the game. And, well, it's also tied to its invention mechanic, because essentially when you're given your camera and you're cut loose, how it works is you basically go around and take pictures of things, and you can use the pictures of things that you take as ideas for inventions. So say, for instance, if you take a picture of a watering can, someone's belt, and a milk tank, you could use all three of those as invention seeds and create a new body for your ride pod. And then all you'd have to do is go collect the materials needed to craft this new body.
Right.
So it gives you an incentive to look around and explore. And that also applies to certain monsters and certain pictures or certain actions. So there's a mechanic in the camera feature known as Inside Scoop, and basically these are meant to take pictures of limited runs during the adventure, such as like if there's a mural in a cave, that could be considered an inside scoop. A monster doing a very specific attack, or an idol that you might not see normally. Stuff that you kind of don't think to go out of the way for, but then when you get the hint, oh, pay attention, let's look around a little bit before we move on. The problem ultimately with the mechanic is the fact that there's a lot of missables, because most of them are boss fights. So like,
right, I can see that.
You have to get pictures of very specific boss monsters, or monsters doing specific attacks. And if you miss it because you either kill it too fast or you don't think to take a picture, that's kind of it. You've missed out on it. And because you miss out on it, you also miss out on any potential bonuses that you would have gotten, or any inventions that would have required that particular scoop as an idea.
Oh, that sucks.
So,
that's miserable.
But see, here's the thing. Now that I've told you, you already know if you play. Pay a little bit of attention before advancing to each chapter. Because there's a lot. Sorry, go ahead.
All I was going to say was, it's one of those things where there's like, it's not unique to that game or any game in particular, but it's kind of interesting how occasionally you do have a game where you kind of need to just know a few things going into it, or you're going to have a bad time, because the game won't tell you this, and not having that knowledge just makes things significantly worse.
Well, another thing to mention too, and I mentioned this to a buddy of mine who I'm trying to talk into playing it, and he's really emphatic on the idea of wanting to get a physical copy of the game, which I commend. The thing with this game specifically, though, is I would encourage, if you have a PlayStation emulator or can run one, I would emulate it, because the other really big mechanic that's not necessarily like a make or break, but it's something to pay attention to, is a mini golf game. It's a golfing mini game.
Okay.
Now, it's actually kind of neat how they applied it into the story, but basically there's one chapter specifically toward the end of the game where once you clear the final boss, you can't go back to it. So if you miss any medals, for instance for time clear, which is clearing the floor within a certain time, clearing it with a very specific weapon or a very specific character, if you clear the final boss, you miss out on all of those medals. Now they're not needed, quote unquote, to like 100% the game and get all the collectibles and everything, but for sake of personal accomplishment, it's kind of better that you just wait, kind of advance at your own pace and tackle them. The problem, however, with the Spheda, which is the golfing minigame, it's actually quite fun, especially when you tie it in with the game's innate ability to randomly generate a dungeon every single time you enter. So even if you enter the same level twice, you will never get the same floor plan. Makes it nice for replayability. But the catch with that, with the Spheda, is you have a limited number of strokes to get the ball to the hole. But the problem is, because the floor is randomly generated, so also is the pathfinding for the ball to the hole. So you could get some really easy ones where they'll stick the ball right in front of the hole or just down the hall and around the corner. And you'll have others that literally require you to go all the way across the map and caddy corner 3 U-turns in about 4 shots.
I see.
So it's one of those ones where a lot of people say save scumming, but honestly, I would just own it, because for that, you kind of want to. Because otherwise, if you try to do it the normal way, you're going to be playing the same level for about 4 hours straight before you even possibly get a chance at it. And some of those levels, because the level's walls actually have collision, if you get caught on a corner, your ball is going to bounce. So it's one I definitely recommend emulating more than playing on a natural, if you can. But I highly, highly, highly recommend playing that game at least once. Like, you've not played a traditional RPG until you played it. It is... Well, that's not the correct statement, but... you understand what I'm talking about.
I know what you mean. It's definitely one that you should.
It's a must-play. I highly recommend I recommend playing it at least once. It is wonderful. And like I said, its soundtrack is absolutely stellar.
In that same vein of games where you should know something going into it, when I was playing through on stream Final Fantasy II, it was my first time actually finishing that game. I'd never done it before. And I'm not sure how familiar you are with Final Fantasy II, but it's a very unusual Final Fantasy game.
Okay.
So the reason why a lot of people dislike it is because it has a very non-standard progression system. You don't just linearly gain levels. In fact, there's not actually a level mechanic at all. Instead, you gain stats randomly after battle based on what you did in that battle. If you do basic melee attacks, you'll probably gain strength. If you cast spells, you'll probably gain intelligence. And the thing about this system that a lot of people don't like is that it's explained really poorly. In some versions of the game, you would gain HP if you lost HP in the fight. In some versions, though, if you heal the HP back before the end of the fight, you won't gain any.
Right, because technically you didn't lose any or any incentive to have lost.
Yeah.
The game doesn't think so.
Yeah, that's actually been fixed in the most recent version, which is what I was playing. But the other, and in my opinion, the biggest thing the game doesn't explain to you is, in that game, every piece of equipment you have, your weapons, armor, and shields, every one of them has a hidden stat penalty that lowers your spellcasting stats. So if you're wearing heavy armor and using like a sword and a shield, your spells are going to be a lot worse, and the game never tells you this. I think maybe like one NPC has like a throwaway line about it, like, oh yeah, it's hard to cast spells in armor, but the game never directly points it out to you. And once you know that that's how that works, and you know how to use that to your advantage, the game actually becomes a lot better than most people give it credit for. I'm not going to say it's good,
because of that
but
one
it's certainly
thing
better.
Because that one thing that would have changed the entirety of how you assemble parties.
Exactly. It's really annoying when you have that with a game, but at least once you do know it, you can at least have a better time with it, at least.
Right, I getcha. Well, honestly, I'd say we're pretty much done here, unless you have anything
I
else
think
to
she was
add.
fantastic. I think she was wonderful.
She came out really well done, and the design looks fairly straightforward. Like I said, just a couple things to emphasize, like the dorsal fin on the back. But honestly, it came out really well. Usually one of the biggest complications and challenges to making these is the naming conventions, because you can have a really good idea for a name and find out it's like 20, it's like 12 characters or something, and you can't use it.
Yeah.
But that's usually the biggest challenge. And honestly, even then, it still came out really nice, and I really like it. It definitely would fit in really nicely with a lot of other aquatic style or aquatic type designs.
Yeah, I think you did a fantastic job with her. She looks absolutely fantastic.
I mean, hey, this isn't my design. I mean, this is ours. We both worked together on this. I mean, hey, look down that.
Oh, I mean, I've just been sitting here yapping. You've been doing the hard work.
No, this is ours. This is something that we have both equal input on. See, I put your signature down here, and I emphasize that as well. That's an important thing. That's why I have fun doing these collaborative art streams, because it's a collaborative effort. We both work towards a final product, and I'd say it came out really nice.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it'd be something that'd be enjoyable if it were ever made into an official one. What I actually what I actually am considering though as well with the next contest that comes up is actually reformatting a couple of these into proper submission pieces and seeing if maybe I could send them in and see what happens. I wouldn't count on much, but
yeah.
I think it'd be kind of cool just to see which one gets a bite.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
mean, you've done so many great ones already, but like, put more out there, and what's the worst that could happen?
I mean, I was freaking out when I found out that Producer Son in the last contest actually went over all the entries and showcased almost all of mine. There's a couple that he missed, either that or I just didn't see him, but otherwise, I really liked. I was really freaked out over that. Now I have a couple actually. I'm saving for the next contest because I just didn't have them done and ready in time, and now I actually have proper ones for it. Bozetto is one of them. I'm ready to send him in for the next one. Another one I'm really waiting to send in is Sentai Hero.
Oh yeah, you showed me this guy. I love him. He's fantastic.
I really hope I can get Sentai Hero in a contest at one point, because this is actually one of my favorite ones I've done. I had so much fun.
Yeah, I think he's really good.
Yeah, so I have him. I'm hoping for, and then the other one I'm hoping to send in. I forgot all about this design. I need to go back and refine this one too. She's not finished, but I actually had an idea for this one too. It's a witch hunter type that I was cooking up.
Ooh.
I had a kit for it and everything. I just haven't had a chance to finish it yet. But yeah, I don't know if I'll send her in unless I finish it. But the other one I'm hoping to send in. Where are you?
Sentai Hero is so good. They would be actually stupid to not pick him. He is fantastic.
Which is funny because a friend asked, "Hey, does a combiner type exist in Metaron?" I'm like, "No, there isn't."
I'm surprised. Like, you would think that would be something they'd have explored by now, really, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So they do not have a formal combiner type. And then since Steam General got in with, at least was highlighted with the last one, I have to send in Big One.
Ah, yes.
And it's funny because this one specifically actually was rebuilt from the ground up. Like, this was a concept I had back in like 2017, and I rebuilt it. So I have to send this one in.
No, I think this is a good one as well. This is really good. I mean, you have a real knack for this. You clearly, obviously you're very passionate about it, and it comes through in all these designs. Like, you've definitely got like the vibes perfectly, and I love them.
Oh, and then I also have Last Citadel. I forgot. I need to send him in.
Oh, that's cool. This reminds me of Alexander from Final Fantasy, and that's a fantastic thing.
Funnily enough, that was actually part of the initial idea seed. Is Alexander.
Yeah, Alexander is like one of my favorite summons.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of this one.
So I have the catch. The reason why I didn't have him ready in time was because I didn't have the chance to crunch it into the proper image restrictions, which is like 2K by 2K. Because when I do like a really heavy concept, I go into like actually making it. So it's like 3,000. It's like 3,500 by like 2,500 resolution.
Right.
So yeah, I might do that with a lot of these ones I do with friends and just see which ones take a bite. But
yeah, you definitely should.
Yeah, but honestly, it was a lot of fun. Helm-chan, it was an absolute treat to have you. You did say that you were working on possibly picking up a Final Fantasy again. Do you have anything else down the pike that you want to talk about or mention before I officially say farewell?
No, nothing really. We're back to business as usual, pretty much. We usually do Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So, actually, there was one thing. May be in a tabletop RPG game that I believe is going to be streamed. So that's going to be quite exciting.
Oh, that might be exciting.
Bit of cyberpunk action.
Nice. Well, that being said, definitely do make sure that you follow Helm-chan on any of her platforms if you have not yet, because first of all, why not? Why are you not doing that already? Wonderful person. It's always a treat to have you on the MNN and even to collab and do other things. We got to coordinate some stuff now that your internet's back up and running.
Definitely, definitely.
At least kind of for now. Fingers crossed that it is.
It's been a week, so I think we're out of the woods, hopefully.
Exactly. We got to coordinate this, and I'd definitely be down to do another one of these original art streams sometime, because honestly, I have so much fun with these, and because of the generator, we'll never have the same result twice.
That's a good point.
Right. So what I'll do is I'm gonna go ahead and say fare thee well for now as far as the stream is concerned. If you don't mind camping out for just a little bit after stream, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, once again, Helm-chan, thank you so much for taking some time to camp out with me for a little while and do some arting and some friendly chats. It's always a treat to have you here at the MNN, and there's always a seat here at the desk if you decide you want to sit in and guest host on a regular Tuesday coverage.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be here. You've been nothing but a delight.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you again, Helm-chan. That for now. All right. Well, with that being said, that does basically cover everything for the art stream. I'd say Melusine song came out really nice, and I was so happy to have Helm-chan with me and get that stream officially on the books. As far as what is incoming, there is nothing officially on the books yet. I can finally relax for a little while. But of course, there is the usual Tuesday coverage of the meta news. No real telling what it's going to be since the Full Metal Panic collab is ending this week. This coming week, I should say. So we'll just have to see. But with all that being said, as always, I do appreciate you all for stopping in, just as you always do. Until next time, this is your host, Kuura Isagami of the Medarot News Network, signing out.